a very, very desperate and vulnerable population.
Thank you for listening to The Interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on The Interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, the former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and Mohammed Yunus, the interim leader of Bangladesh. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was The Interview. I'm Saroja Coelho, CBC
FM 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thank you for being here. We're here till 8:37 with you. Get you through the morning. Talk about what's happening out there in traffic. Should be quiet this morning. And the rain is just tapering off after a really wet day yesterday in many of our southern communities and in some of these cities up north as well. So we'll see what the day is going to bring. I can tell you right now it's 9 in Winnipeg. In Brandon this morning, your current condition is 7 degrees. And in Thompson right now, it is 2 degrees, and that's the cold spot in the province. The warm spot, by the way, is Victoria Beach at 11 degrees. We broke all kinds of records yesterday for daytime highs, lows, and everything in between. Just cooler than usual. We should bounce back by mid next week, maybe even early next week. All right, let's say good morning to everyone that's here. Corey Funk is here. Hi, Corey. Corey's directing the show and also will be on air covering your commute. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adeyemi, who is behind the controls of the program, our senior tech. Abby covers weather on InfoRad. And then good morning to Brad Lillies, who is our producer of our YouTube and vMix stream. Heather Wells is in the house also. She's actually in our news center, and she begins with the day's news headlines. And I'm going to change tone right away because anyone in this province knows we had a very serious day here yesterday. I'm not sure, Heather, what you're leading with, but I know that there was a lot of serious news. So what are your updates this morning?
Yes, grief and shock this morning, all through the day yesterday at a Manitoba First Nation. A mass stabbing left 8 people injured, including an RCMP officer. An 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. The chief of Hollow Water First Nation is asking for prayers for his community. Housing and Addictions Minister Bernadette Smith says Manitoba is listening to public feedback as it looks for a new supervised consumption site location. The government announced earlier this week the site will no longer be at 200 Disraeli Freeway. Smith says they will take their time and make sure they pick the right spot. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, on the Hollow Water story this morning, we're being mindful and respectful of the community and also of the police investigation that's going to be ongoing now. But we will hear more from the Premier. We will hear more from the Chief. That's in the second hour of Information Radio. So stay tuned for that. We begin, though, by hearing a bit from Manitoba author Miriam Taves. That's coming up.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Anne Murray is here to reflect on her record-breaking career, her new album, which includes songs she recorded between the 70s and the 90s, and why it didn't take much convincing for her to be in an episode of Family Guy.
First of all, I just want to tell you what a huge fan I am.
Aw, that's very sweet of you.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Prime Minister Mark Carney says his key priorities for the next 6 months are set. He's discussed plans with his cabinet, and later this morning he will update Canadians on what's coming next. For more on what we know so far, let's turn to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, what we're expecting today, not necessarily one announcement, perhaps a series of moves by the Carney government.
That's right. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne was telling reporters yesterday this government understands it needs to make some smart economic adjustments here. But while the biggest headlines on future federal spending are probably going to wait for his budget in October, Mark Carney's cabinet knows it can't wait on some other moves to help the sectors that are under the most pressure right now, starting with the automotive industry, which has been begging the Liberals to rethink its electric vehicle mandate, which, starting next year, is otherwise going to require car companies that don't meet sales targets for electric vehicles to pay credits to automakers who do. Brian Kingston from the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association says that's a poor strategy if your goal is supposed to be supporting Canadian manufacturing.
putting these arbitrary sales ratios in place and forcing these credit transfers is frankly preposterous.
The government's also under pressure to prop up the agriculture industry that continues to bear the brunt of Chinese tariffs that were slapped on in retaliation for Canada going along with U.S. demands for high tariffs on imports like electric vehicles that are made in China. The Prime Minister has asked his Parliamentary Secretary, Cody Blois, to join Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe on a trade mission that starts this weekend. But canola farmers in particular are desperate for help in the meantime.
So, Janice, how might all of this fit in with the Carney government's push to ramp up defense spending?
Industry Minister Melanie Joly told reporters yesterday there is a way to boost the economy and build up Canada's military at the same time.
We're the only G7 country that doesn't have a defense industrial strategy. That time is up, and we're working on it.
The industry to watch in particular here is steel. Joly pointed out how up to now, it's mostly been focused on supplying automakers. But in addition to obvious uses like military shipbuilding, Canada's going to need a lot of construction steel for the government's housing plans. We're thinking I-beams, rebars, steel to build trade infrastructure, ports. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has already stepped up with provincial money last month to help pivot steelmaking in Sault Ste. Marie to these emerging priorities. Will we see the Carney government follow suit with a fresh pot of federal money?
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is warning Ukraine's allies any troops they deploy to Ukraine would be considered legitimate military targets. Yesterday, Emmanuel Macron announced that more than 24 countries are ready to send troops to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire. Crystal Gamansing has more Kremlin reaction.
Talk of the war in Ukraine spilled over into a Russian economic forum. Vladimir Putin said foreign military contingents in Ukraine will be legitimate targets for destruction. One of the justifications the Kremlin gave for the full-scale invasion was to protect itself from NATO, as Ukraine was seeking to join the military alliance. In the years since, NATO has grown. Finland joined in 2023, Sweden the next year. Now there are commitments from 26 nations for an international post-war reassurance force for Ukraine.
What's happening with the coalition of the willing is even bigger than Russia and Ukraine.
Admiral Tony Radakin was until this week the chief of the defense forces in the UK and one of those military leaders making plans for the coalition of the willing.
It's much more about European security, this adjustment with America, the reassurance to America that Europe is taking more responsibility for its security, the energizing of Europe.
Putin says if a lasting peace is achieved, there would be no need for international troops in Ukraine, that Moscow would respect a peace deal. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The Department of National Defence says search efforts are ongoing for a Canadian Armed Forces member missing in Latvia. Warrant Officer George Hole was reported missing on Tuesday. Hole is a vehicle technician with 408 Tactical Helicopter Squadron based in Edmonton. He's serving in Latvia as part of the Canadian-led NATO mission there. Latvian police are leading the investigation. The U.S. is warning Venezuela against what it's calling provocative moves in the Caribbean. It says Venezuela flew 2 military planes near one of its ships in the region. The U.S. had recently bulked up its presence to counter drug trafficking. CBC's Willie Lowry has more from Washington. Willie, what's going on?
So, John, this is all an extension of President Donald Trump's long-held desire to curb the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S. Now, the administration has been pretty clear in recent days that it's willing to go on the offensive. Earlier this week, Trump released footage that he said showed a strike on a boat allegedly full of drugs and members of a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua. Now, that strike raises serious legal questions, and it's unclear what authority the U.S. has to take actions like that in international waters. Here's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
If you're trafficking drugs and you're a known cartel entity, a designated terror organization, and they're headed for the United States or part of a process that would head to the United States, that will have lethal consequences. The poisoning of the American people is over.
And there's been a bit of a war of words between Washington and Caracas. And this incident where 2 jets flew near U.S. ships appears to be the latest escalation.
Willie, this as the U.S. Defense Department is now going through a rebrand. What are they doing?
The name change harkens back to a different era. Up until shortly after the Second World War, it was the Department of War, and the administration has been determined to rebrand the military. Hegseth has made rooting out so-called wokeness a major part of his short tenure. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order later today.
CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
2 Canadians are now confirmed to be among the dead in the Lisbon streetcar crash. Portuguese police say 11 of the 16 people killed in the incident were foreigners. The Gloria funicular went off the rails Wednesday evening. Crews removed the wreckage overnight. Government officials are scheduled to release a preliminary report into the incident later today. Police in Ontario say they have solved a decades-old cold case in Algonquin Provincial Park. Human remains were discovered there in 1980, and now 4 decades later, police have used DNA to identify the body and track down some family members. Emma Weller has the story.
I identified myself as a police officer from Ontario, Canada. And the next words out of her mouth was, "Is this about my brother?"
It was a phone call Detective Sergeant Philip Holmes with Ontario Provincial Police won't forget, calling Ruth Singer to let her know after nearly 50 years they've found her brother's body.
Right away, she burst into tears. But it was tears, I could tell right away that they were tears of happiness, tears of relief.
Her brother Eric Singer from Cleveland, Ohio, left home in October 1973. His other sister told police he left on his bike with a backpack and they never heard from him again. Fast forward to today, police have identified his remains in Algonquin Park. Holmes says the investigation began in 1980.
A hiker was cutting off trail from one trail to another and came across a human skull laying on the ground.
It turned into a cold case until the police force began using investigative genetic genealogy. It works to match DNA with potential family members. Matthew Waterfield is with the DNA Doe Project, who police turned to in 2022. Waterfield says a match was made in less than 24 hours, which is lucky.
To be able to reunite him with his identity so quickly, provide answers to his family without a grueling years-long search, was a tremendous relief.
This summer, both of the sisters visited the trail where their brother spent his final days. Emma Weller, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally, Song of the Summer. How about Surprise Song of the Summer?
This is for the people making the most to find out nowhere to run to. The way out is the way through. We'll get through anything.
New music there from Justin Bieber, part of a brand new album released at midnight last night. It's called Swag 2. And fans didn't see it coming because the prequel, Swag, was just released in July. This is the London, Ontario-born singer's 8th studio album. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, and we hope you are, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps to spread the word. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
I think you're special. You must be a specialist 'cause your messages.
See, I don't know that I call myself a Swiftie, but I sure do love Justin Bieber music. We're going to try to get some on for you this morning, some of that new stuff. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. You're on Information Radio on CBC. We are live downtown in our studios on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. This hour on the show, Back to School Week rounds out today. Evergreen School Division goes in today. Swan Valley, the last division to get that first day under their belt next week. We're going to talk about how this time of year can be exciting and anxiety-inducing as well. So we have our parenting column this hour. We're going to look at how to support kids and teens at the start of this new year. Also, we're going to hear Miriam Taves. You might have heard the full interview on The Current this week. In case you missed it, we've got a piece of that, the beloved Manitoba author. And Prime Minister Mark Carney, as you just heard on World Report, did wrap up that cabinet retreat yesterday, telling Canadians to expect big national building projects in the months ahead. We're all watching Churchill here, but there's also spending cuts that we're about to have to pay attention to. So we'll hear more about what the Prime Minister said. Heather Wells is in now with local news headlines after a devastating day in Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning. And the chief of Hollow Water First Nation is asking for prayers for his community. A mass stabbing there yesterday left 8 people injured. An 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. Chief Larry Barker says the families were very close to him. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has offered provincial help to Hollow Water. Frustration for some not-for-profit organizations along Selkirk Avenue after a rash of theft that is costing thousands of dollars. Urban Circle Training Centre and North End Women's Centre have both had their HVAC units stripped of copper and left unusable. Vicki Brown at Urban Circle says they're sad that they've become the target of theft by people in the community when it is their aim to improve their lives. So we'll hear more on this story in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank
Heather.
you.
It is 12 minutes after 6 o'clock. Abby Adiyemi the last couple of days has been covering traffic, but you're back in your weather role today, friend.
True, Marcy. And it's going to be more like warmer than yesterday, but still cool. It's going to be a cool day. Gentle start across board. We're seeing some cloud cover across the province. Conditions still mostly quiet. Temperatures gradually climbing to the low teens as we get into the weekend. For Winnipeg right now, we are at 9 degrees, cloudy outside. As we get through the morning, the cloud cover will stick around. Just a slim chance of showers in the forecast. By midday, those clouds will give way to a mix of sun and clouds. Winds will come from the northwest and it's going to pick up. It will feel breezy at some point. We'll see our temperature climb to around 15 degrees and then partly cloudy conditions tonight into tomorrow. Across board from the Westmount, Parkland, Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures between 5 and 8 degrees right now. Mostly cloudy also in these regions. A slim chance of showers lingering for the region. But later in the morning, we'll see sunshine in southern Manitoba. Up north, we're seeing 7 degrees to about 13 degrees in the northern part of the province. Highs will be around 10 degrees. But for Winnipeg right now, 9 degrees, cloudy outside, some sunny breaks by the afternoon period.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
What's going on in the morning commute? Corey Funk?
Not much right now. I haven't heard of any major issues, but if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something, give me a call on that CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, I'll tell you what, of course, it's colder than we would like right now, a little more chilly. We kind of wanted a warmer fall, especially last weekend was cooking and sweaty, and now we're into these lower, not only lower than usual, but record-breaking colds for daytime highs yesterday in Winnipeg. It is good, though, if you want to curl up with a book, and a lot of people have chosen Miriam Toews' book to curl up with. I'm not sure if you heard the Manitoba author on The Current earlier this week, but she is one of the country's most highly regarded and celebrated writers. She's the author of Woman Talking, that came out in 2018, Alma Puny Sorrows before that, 2014, and then A Complicated Kindness in 2004. She's won a number of literary prizes, Miriam Toews has, including the Governor General's Award for Fiction. Well, she now has a new memoir that's out. It's called A Truce That Is Not a Peace. CBC's Matt Galloway, as I alluded to, spoke with author Miriam Toews on The Current about her experience as a writer and how she understands the craft. But in case you missed it, this morning we wanted to start with part of that conversation.
There's something so pretentious to me, or self-indulgent, or just imposter-y about writing. It's something that I'm so embarrassed about, so mortified by, and yet, I can't stop doing it. I need to do it. Other people's books. I mean, reading, that's my whole world. Books and reading, and yet I have this. And maybe it's from my background. Maybe it's growing up where I did when I did, as a Mennonite girl on the prairies, without any sort of understanding that being a writer was something that anybody could be. I still ask myself the questions that was asked of me from maybe conservative religious men. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. This is just lies. This is just self-indulgent, self-centered, self-absorbed nonsense.
You still ask yourself those questions?
Yeah, and it's just that thing that, like, it doesn't matter how old I get, and I'm really old now, Matt.
You were not really old, but continue.
You just can't get away from that.
When did you know that you could do this? I mean, because you You could have been something else. You could have been here on the radio, delivering the traffic.
Is it too late? Yeah, that's right. I did have a very, 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 very short radio gig, as a traffic girl.
Lisa Cook?
Lisa Cook.
The traffic girl.
Yeah. So I read about this in the book. I had finished journalism school and got this gig and in Manitoba, a tiny little radio station. And when I told, and they said, okay, yeah, we're going to hire you to do the weather. What is your name? And I said, my name. And they said, no. That's a crazy name. You're going to be Lisa Cook.
Lisa Cook.
Yeah.
When did you figure out that perhaps that was not what you wanted to do, and that despite all those voices that were coming at you, you could write, that this could be something that you could do?
If I think back to my childhood, my father encouraged me to write things down when I was bored. It would be, he would say, hey, why don't you write a little bit? He was a teacher, write a paragraph of whatever it is that you want to write. And so, and I would do it sometimes I wouldn't. And it felt good. I remember it feeling good. I remember just the process, just putting words onto a page, seeing that, a sort of, synthesis of whatever it was that was going on in my head. And that was exciting to see that I'd made something. But it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, really, and I was working on a radio documentary about mothers on welfare, and it occurred to me then in that process that, hey, you know what, I might be able to maybe write a novel. I mean, even saying that, I remember actually somebody when I did write the novel and it came out, and a guy on the radio was reviewing it, I suppose, and said, "Yeah, but is it really a novel?" And I remember thinking the same thing. Yeah, maybe it's not. I mean, it's just basically a sort of fictionalized version of my own life. Maybe that's not what a novel is. Maybe I didn't just write a novel. And I remember my sister, being so angry and indignant on my behalf, It's like, yeah, it's a novel.
Author Miriam Toews, one of Canada's most highly regarded writers, of course, from here in Manitoba. Her memoir is now out. It's called A Truce That Is Not a Peace. That's part of a conversation with the CBC's Matt Galloway on The Current. You can find the full conversation, by the way, on the CBC Listen app if you want to check it out. You can also just search The Current anywhere you get your podcasts. And in case you're wondering, it's interesting, upon hearing that pressure at that small radio station in Manitoba, she described it she talks about in her memoir about it being basically just out by the perimeter, a little cinder block building and an antenna, as she describes it. But she was pressured to be known as Lisa Cook on the air. In case you're wondering, Abby Adiemi, even though it has alliteration, is his real name, and Marcy Marcusa is mine. 6:19 is the time right now. This is Information Radio.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. Jan Arden, legendary singer-songwriter, captivates her audience in a legendary venue.
Welcome to Massey Hall.
Jan Arden, with an evening of original hit songs and some of her favorite pop covers from her latest album, Mixtape. Jan Arden, CBC Live at Massey Hall. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Thank you.
That's enough for me to want to watch. I love her voice. I also love that she covered that tune. That tune was huge in the 80s, 90s. It's mostly cloudy right now, everyone. Friday morning, 9 degrees, September the 5th. And in Winnipeg today, chance of showers early this morning. I noticed a couple of sprinkles, but it seems like we're probably on the other side of the system now. Beautiful, moody September sky out there after a cool day yesterday. It's going to be cooler than normal today again, but a high of 15, so just a titch warmer than we were yesterday. And windy. So winds will be northwest 30 to 50 today in the city. Brandon's mostly cloudy 6, Thompson mainly clear and 1. Well, starting the school year, reconnecting with friends you haven't seen all summer or just figuring out where your classes are. This time of year can be fun, but also stressful. And parents, well, the role is to help you through that, to help your students through that. But how do you do that? How do you know when it's the right time to step in and when it's normal jitters? And let's talk about that in our parenting column. S. Bear Bergman is here, father of 3 and author of Special Topics and Being a Parent, a queer and tender guide to things I've learned about parenting, mostly the hard way. Hello, Bearer.
Good morning.
So what's your thought on this time of year and why it can be so challenging in terms of, in terms of being a student and all those mixed emotions coming back?
I mean, for one thing, it's exhausting, right? Kids are going back to school and they're having to use a whole bunch of skills that they haven't used a lot in 2 months. They haven't been raising their hand to talk or sitting still or taking notes. So it's a little bit like, when you go back to the gym after a while away, those first couple of weeks, you really feel it. But also, everything is new teachers, new subjects, new expectations, new social situations. And for some kids, things that are new are very exciting. But for a lot of kids, it comes with a certain amount of very reasonable uncertainty. And those first couple of weeks when they're finding their groove can make them feel a little nervous. So it's not surprising that the first week or two of school can be a little crunchy for a lot of kids.
All right, so give us some advice about when to press. Because if you have a teenager especially, or, a younger kid, but I'm just going to focus on teens for a sec here. How do you know, what's the best way to get your kid to share how their day was or something bigger? And, how do you know when to back off?
I really, I like one-on-one conversations for this that are also paired with, a pleasing activity. Take an hour and take the dog for a long walk or go get ice cream. Just sort of, make a space for whatever conversation happens. And I really like to start those conversations by talking about my own memories of that same age or that same grade, because then it really prompts kids to compare and talk about what their experience is. My littlest is in grade 5 this year, so we've been talking about my grade 5 teacher and what she was like and what we read and how I felt about it when math suddenly sprouted letters as well as numbers. Not great. But by offering some glimpse into your experience and your memories, it can kind of help kids to feel a little more like they're in a conversation and less like, there's an interrogation and you're holding a clipboard. Right. Well, I think
keep that clipboard mental, right? The mental
right.
clipboard.
Yes, you gotta keep it way inside. But the other thing is, teenagers do tend to like more privacy about their emotional landscape, and developmentally, that's very normal. But even if they don't say a lot, having made the time to have the conversation helps them to know that when there are things to say, that you will be ready to give them your time and your attention. So even if you don't get a lot out of them during those early conversations, it's not wasted time.
We're going to model this for a second. I'm the teenager, you're the parent. Ready?
Okay.
Ask me how my day was.
Well, I probably wouldn't ask you how your day was.
Okay, so there's learning in this, because my answer was going to be fine, the one-word answer. And then a lot of people are like, well, what do you mean? I want more than that. So tell me why you wouldn't ask that question.
Because it has a one-word answer. I would probably ask, what was surprising in your day? What was your favorite part of your day? Who did you have lunch with? What do you think your favorite class is going to be? I wouldn't carry on forever, but I would definitely ask questions that are more open-ended in order to avoid the dreaded fine.
Yep. If your child's having a problem, like if there's a problem or they're unhappy about something at any age now, how do you, what's your advice as a parent for that support?
It really depends on what the problem is. I'm a great fan of trying to really encourage kids to to do their own self-advocacy, but also to really be the ones taking the lead about whatever is the problem and to ask, what do you think you or we could do about that? What support do you need? There's some things that are adult problems. If there's violence or if people are saying slurs in the classroom or on the playground, that's an adult problem. I'm picking up the phone right away. But for things that are more social or where a kid is having anxieties, and I have to tell you, I don't love this part because I'm a big, you tell me the problem, I'll fix it, then everything is fine kind of guy. But sometimes they just really want to talk and feel heard and complain and be commiserated with.
Yeah.
And that too can be really helpful, just to give them that safe space.
Good advice after a first week back here in Manitoba. Thank you very much, Bear. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
You too. That's us, Bear Bergman, our parenting columnist and father of 3, author of Special Topics and Being a Parent. Evergreen School Division, by the way, your school day number 1 is today. Well, we find ourselves with a couple minutes before the news, which is great because we get to play a really lovely tune. Lean in and listen to see if you can hear the jingles in this tune. You'll hear them right away. This is Winnipeg-born Indigenous singer-songwriter Ethan Lyric. His single is Jingle Dress.
Ghostly, staring at the ceiling, heart of gold, blank eyes, moving, follow your emotions, let them be, let me be beside you. Just a girl who dances jingle and a boy who breaks my heart. Tippy tappy toes, making little mocking marks, and you're bobbing up and down like you're floating in the air. In every field I see, in every old oak tree, I see you. Longing, carrying a burden, move mountains, push them down, flying, soaring like the eagle, pretty eyes, I just say I need you. Just a girl who dances jingle and a boy who breaks my heart. Tippy tappy toes, making little mocky marks, and you're bobbing up and down like you're floating in the air. So in every field I see, in every old oak tree, I see you. Dances jingle and a boy who breaks my heart. Tappy tappy toes, making little mocky marks, and you're bobbing up and down like you're floating in the air. It's in every field I see, in every old oak tree, I see you.
Maybe you caught some of Ethan Lyric this summer at local events around town. That's Winnipeg singer-songwriter. The tune is called Jingle Dress. It is coming up to 6:30 and news time. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you see any problems in traffic this Friday, September 5th, give us a call on the commuter line. 788-3093 is where you can reach us. We will have your full regional forecast and look at what's another cold day ahead coming up after the news. And then we have business news with Hallie Cottonham this morning. You're going to hear how your cup of joe has soared in price. We'll talk about coffee prices and what's happened because of the trade issues. That and more coming up after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 9 degrees. It's going to be slightly warmer than yesterday, becoming a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Windy today, a high of 15. Grief and shock in a Manitoba First Nation. A mass stabbing yesterday left 8 people injured on Hollowater First Nation. An 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. 7 of the stabbing victims remain in hospital. Hollowater Chief Larry Barker is asking for prayers.
The families was very close to me. And my deepest condolences to the family right now. So I'll pray as hard as I could.
The RCMP officer injured in the collision that killed the suspect is expected to make a full recovery. Assistant Commissioner Scott McClatchy says she suffered serious injuries in the crash on Provincial Road 304 yesterday and is being treated at the Health Sciences Centre. Nicole Clark witnessed the aftermath of that crash.
It was pretty bad. The 2 vehicles were on the other side of the road and the RCMP was on the other.
Premier Rob Canoe says the officer driving that cruiser is a hero who stopped a man on a rampage. He says the province has offered leaders in Hollowater extra supports for the community to heal. Frustration for some not-for-profit organizations along Selkirk Avenue in Winnipeg after a rash of theft that is costing thousands of dollars. Urban Circle Training Centre and the North End Women's Centre have both had their HVAC units stripped of copper and left unusable. Vicki Brown at Urban Circle is sad they're the target of petty theft by people in the community.
It's disheartening, honestly, because we feel like a lot of people in the community know what we're all about and what we do here, and that we're an education center and we're bettering people's lives. And we would think that they wouldn't do something like that.
Urban Circle would like to see government and law enforcement crack down on metal theft and use the Scrap Metal Act to make it harder for people to buy and sell stolen metals. Manitoba's Addictions and Homelessness Minister says the province won't rush in finding a new location for a supervised consumption site. Premier Rob Canoe says the province will find an alternative spot to 200 Disraeli Freeway in Point Douglas following concerns from the community. Minister Bernadette Smith says she has listened to the feedback.
We want to make sure that we're getting it right, so we've taken what we've heard from community and we're instituting into the plan.
The province says a new location will be further away from schools and daycare. Smith says it will also have access to addictions treatment and other supports. 2 Canadians are now confirmed to be among the dead in this week's funicular crash in Lisbon. Portuguese police say 11 of the 16 people killed in that incident were tourists. The funicular went off the rails Wednesday night. Crews have now removed the wreckage, with the government officials scheduled to release a preliminary report later today. Prime Minister Mark Carney is making an announcement today on what his office calls Canada's strategic economic sectors. Industry Minister Melanie Joly has hinted an update is in the works on the support for those industries hardest hit by the Trump tariffs. Joly says the government's looking at ways to help some of those companies retool. That includes getting steelmakers to turn away from the U.S. market and instead look to domestic projects. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. 13 southeast Manitoba communities will be able to double their population after a new $235 million wastewater treatment plant is built near Niverville. More than 100 kilometers of pipes will connect towns to that plant. Niverville Mayor Myron Dick says his fast-growing town is just one of the southeast communities approaching their limit.
Let's face it, infrastructure is limiting some places in this country. Businesses are looking, where do you have infrastructure? Where do you have power? Where do you have water? Where do you have wastewater? Do you have proper road access to get goods to market? If you don't have that, you are disqualified.
Tenders for the plant are due today. 6 municipalities will own it as a co-op, including Richot, Hanover, Taché, La Broquerie, de Salaberry, and Niverville. A builder is expected to be announced in October, with construction complete in 4 to 5 years, and that plant will be able to serve 70,000 people with the ability to expand and serve even more. You can find more news on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for your regional forecast. Abby Adiyemi has it, and we're going to put those maps up on our YouTube stream so you can see where everything's changing and moving today.
Yeah, you'll notice a quiet today. Gentle start, still a bit of cloud outside. Breezy conditions will be moving in from the south to the northern part of the province. Now, looking at the rundown, Winnipeg right now still at 9 degrees. Cloudy conditions out there. Feels a bit fresh, but cool. Not as cool as yesterday morning, but we're still, not where we're supposed to be this time of the year. Today's weather is going to be bringing a mix of sun and clouds, some breezy conditions coming from the northwest, and we'll see temperatures climb to around 15 degrees. For the Pembina Valley region, we're talking about Morden, Winkler out to the Morris down to the U.S. border. We're seeing temperatures hover around 7-8 degrees this morning. Mostly cloudy skies we're seeing. There's a slim chance of showers in that part of the province for the morning period. Then that will be followed by a sunny breakthrough the afternoon period and a mix of sun and clouds. Westerly breeze are pushing the high to around 13 degrees. In the Westman region, Brandon, surrounding regions, we're seeing temperatures sitting around 7 degrees. Also cloudy conditions at this moment. You should expect a mix of sun and clouds later today. And also in the forecast, a slim chance of showers, light winds coming from the northwest, and temperatures will be getting to around 14 degrees. In the Parkland region, good morning, Dauphin. You are currently around 5 degrees this morning. Partly cloudy skies you're seeing. The rest of the day will stay mainly cloudy. We do have a slim chance of showers also in the forecast. Temperatures will get to the low teens around 13 degrees later today. In the Interlake region, we're tracking 8 degrees around Gimli for this time. Also, mostly cloudy skies. We do have temperatures today will only get to around 14 to 15 degrees, depending on where you are in the Interlake. Now, crossing into the northern part of the province. Let's start from the powerful influence surrounding areas. We're looking at similar conditions in that area. 7 degrees. We do have more like an overcast in that part of the province this morning. Expect more of cloudy conditions to stick all day. A good chance of showers in the forecast. Winds will be coming from the northwest. Daytime highs will get to 13 degrees. Thompson is waking up to a crisp condition of 2 degrees. I know we talked about below the 0 points the other day, but Thompson is around 2 degrees this morning. Clear skies we have. Expect a mix of sun and clouds today. Temperature will climb to 14 degrees. In Churchill, 7 degrees this morning. A few clouds overhead. Today we'll see a mix of sun and clouds there, and we will get a high of 10 degrees. So across board, it's more like cloudy start to the day. Occasional sunny breaks, gentle breeze, and highs will be around 15 degrees in most of the regions. Winnipeg right now, 9.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk has popped in with a look at our commute today. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, just one closure to keep an eye out for Princess. All the southbound lanes between Rupert and Williams are going to be closed starting today until Sunday for a special event. Other than that, haven't heard of any other major issues out there. But if you see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
You want to do something for a second here that's quick that your 2-year-old will love?
Ooh, yeah.
Abby's wearing that shirt today. I think we should sing in honor of the ducks all over it.
What's that?
Rubber ducky, you're the one. You make bath time so much fun. Where are you? I lost you.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to think about how to harmonize, but I sing that for him all the time in the bathtub. Any level.
I love that shirt. It's probably in honor of yesterday when it was raining so much, maybe. All right, on to more serious things. Unless Hallie wants to sing Rubber Ducky with us. Hi, Hallie.
You have some serious chops, Marcy. Holy smokes.
I have sung a time or two, usually not on the radio. Hallie Cottenham joins us now on InfoRad with our business news. You are here with numbers, or I guess an analysis of what we're expecting. The U.S. jobs report's coming out, I think, in about an hour. There's a lot riding on this, right?
Yeah, in fact, it could determine whether the Fed cuts interest rates later this month. That's what the Fed chair said, that his decision will hinge on today's jobs news and inflation data. And you probably recall there was a lot of drama about last month's jobs report, in which the U.S. added just 73,000 jobs. More importantly, there were these huge revisions, the biggest revision since 1968 to the numbers from May and June that stripped away 250,000 jobs, basically revealing that the U.S. economy was weaker than everyone thought. That angered President Donald Trump, who took to social posting, "Today's job numbers were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad." And a few hours later, he fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, saying that she would be, quote, replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. So you're right. We're going to know those jobs numbers in about an hour. If they're better than expected, it might mean no interest rate cut. But some data came out yesterday that seems to suggest otherwise. First-time claims for EI benefits in the U.S. rose to an 11-week high. Canada's jobs numbers also out this morning. Some forecasters are predicting about a 10,000 job increase last month compared to a loss of 41,000 jobs in July.
Now, Manitobans might want to turn this story up because all across the prairies were affected by this. So there's been some development, Hallie, in the canola dispute with China, right?
Yeah, China has pushed back its final ruling. So this anti-dumping probe will now run until March 9th, 2026. It's because of the complexity of the case, according to a statement from China's Ministry of Commerce. Beijing, the world's largest importer of canola, it imposed preliminary duties of more than 75% on Canadian canola seeds last month. The final ruling could result in a different rate or even overturn the decision. The bottom line, this extension buys 6 more months for negotiations to work, and that could help ease this year-long trade dispute that was sparked by Canada's tariffs on Chinese EVs.
And finally, I mentioned to listeners we were going to be talking about this. Caffeine levels aren't the only things spiking for coffee drinkers.
That's right. That's right. Prices for coffee have soared. Ground roast coffee prices hit record highs in July, a 33% increase from a year ago. And when you consider all varieties of coffee, including instant coffee, prices are up 14.5%. And that puts it near the top of inflation-affected goods. Now, what's going on? It turns out it's a perfect storm of increased demand, of which I am somewhat responsible for, extreme weather, and tariffs. There was a drought in Brazil last summer. It really hurt. Brazil is the top coffee producer in the world, supplies about 40% of global volume. Then the Trump administration slapped a 50% tariff on Brazilian goods, including coffee. Now, Vietnam is the world's number 2 supplier, and it too was hit by drought last year. It caused its coffee production to fall by 20%. And Vietnam's drought was followed up by these big rains, and that caused what analysts describe as precipitation whiplash. So if your coffee is costing more, especially at the grocery store, which is really vulnerable to these swings in prices, you now know why.
It was one of the first stories that we did here because we've got a local coffee roaster on Dufferin Avenue in Winnipeg called Black Pearl, and they were raising this, and it was kind of at a time when most of us were watching steel, aluminum, and they're like, hang on, we might want to watch coffee, so now we're seeing the result of it. What are you seeing in the number? Pardon me, not numbers anymore. I'm in automatic mode because we always used to do numbers. Now we're pointing people to our website for our detailed analysis, which means we have time for another story. Let's talk about Lululemon. They're having a bitter moment. What's going on?
Well, its shares plunged 15% in extended trading yesterday after it admitted it's just not going to make as much money this year as expected. In fact, tariffs will eat away at its profits by more than $240 million. And there's that loss of the de minimis exemption, which I know your show talked about. This had allowed Lululemon to avoid duties on its e-commerce orders shipped to the U.S. from distribution centers in Canada. In addition to this, sales are down, and company executives admit their products may become a little stale, maybe a little predictable. They're promising new styles, but some marketing analysts say Lululemon has lost its edge, and it's losing sales to cheaper knockoffs, or as one analyst said, private label dupes with comparable fabric tech at lower prices.
Quite a comparison. All right, Hallie, have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Absolutely. See you, Marcy.
See you later. That's Hallie Cotton with our business news. So for those numbers, as I mentioned, cbc.ca/business. Check it out online. It is 9 degrees in Winnipeg, mostly cloudy, and there's been a lot of comedians in the news this week, including Veronica Slowakowska, who is going to join the Saturday Night Live cast, right? She's the only Canadian in the new cast, so pretty exciting. She's from Barrie, Ontario. Also, you might have seen yesterday on social media, 20 years of the Debaters. They're celebrating that this year, anniversary shows and all kinds of behind-the-scenes shows planned as well. well. So you can check that out. You might have seen the debaters this year if you were at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. We thought we would actually pull a bit of comedy from the fest today. This was recorded back in May. This is comedian Matt Falk, who recently, he says, bought a mattress from an online site, but questions if that was the best idea.
My wife and I recently bought a mattress online, and it showed up in a little box. It was like a magic trick. I was like, where's the mattress? He's like, it's in the box. I'm like, there's no way it's in the box. He's like, oh, it's in the box. Brought it upstairs to our room, opened it up. This thing came to life. I was so confident that it was going to be comfortable. I took our old mattress and I hucked it into the basement. Like with conviction too. I felt like an evil king from a medieval movie. I was like, you are henceforth banished from the kingdom of the bedroom. You shall live out the remainder of your days in the dungeons of this basement, only to be used as a trampoline for our 2 sons or as a guest bed for people we don't like. Ha! So we slept on the new mattress, woke up the next morning with a tremendous amount of back pain, realized we had made a terrible mistake. Because children, as it turns out, the technology you need to make a mattress fit in a box and the technology you need to make a mattress comfortable are not the same pieces of technology. It's ridiculous. And there's nothing I could do about it. I couldn't put it back into the box. This thing was once a box and now it was a mattress, okay? It exploded from that box with an intensity so great that videos of it could be used to depict the horrors of childbirth. And just like childbirth, there was no reversing it. What's done is done. What's out is out.
Yeah, you're not putting that thing back in. That's Matt Falk, recorded in May at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. Bit of a bright on a Friday morning here, a cool Friday morning in Manitoba on CBC. I'm RC Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Well, we have music that comes out of a group from St. Boniface this morning, Jeremy and the Delicious Hounds. Their debut album came out back in 2023. It was recorded live off the floor with Winnipeg producer Murray Pulver. One of the standout singles that is still making waves is this one. Here's We Haven't Met Yet.
We haven't met yet, but I know that I want you. Know that I want you. This sounds crazy. We haven't met yet, but I know that I need you. Know that I need you. I've been searching true love and romance, and not times I've been given nothing more than a glance into the fire of affection, into the throes of affection. It's not too damn long I've been on my own. You know this life ain't meant to be lived alone. It's in a heart to seek company. There she was, sitting next to me. We haven't met yet, but I know that I want you. Know that I want you. This sounds crazy. We haven't met yet, but I know that I need you. Know that I need you. With the flip of a page, now it's color green. You were lost in the words that painted a scene of a world so pure and true. How could I dare to intrude? How could I dare to intrude? crazy. We haven't met yet, but I know that I need you. Know that I need you. Hey, we haven't.
You want to check out Jeremy and the Delicious Sounds, or I should say Jeremy, out of St. Boniface? You can check them out this weekend. This tune is We Haven't Met Yet. It's from their 2023 debut album called Cruel. They're playing this weekend. You can check them out tomorrow. They have a show at the Neighbor by Neighbor Music Festival. That's happening tomorrow in Winnipeg at the Lord Roberts Community Centre. Right now, 9 minutes to 7 o'clock, and next on the show, let's talk politics. Prime Minister Mark Carney wrapped up yesterday a meeting with his cabinet, as we heard on World Report, focusing on priorities ahead and the new parliamentary season ahead as well. Now, this is a big agenda with the Finance Minister, François-Philippe Champagne, has compared to the national rebuilding after the Second World War. That is what he compared it to. Thomas Galipeau is here, political scientist at the University of Toronto via Zoom to talk about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to start with that comparison. Overstated or not?
The comparison between
François-Philippe Champagne comparing this meeting and what's at stake and moving ahead, that this is national rebuilding in Canada, that he compared to, the time after the Second World War. And I was just mindful thinking about all the meetings this week and, the leaders even gathering. We saw Putin with the leader of China and maybe not overstated. I just wondered your take on that.
So the comparison between World War II is about post-war construction and housing, especially. I think the parallel here was about the demand pressure that was similar to when the veterans came back from overseas, and trying to use the same policy tools back then today, because the result in those days between 45 and 68 was doubling the stock of housing. And in today's context would work the same. The objective is to double the pace of construction and facilitate that through pre-approved plans that were the same policy that has been used in those years, and facilitating also zoning changes, but also targeted investment. So for instance, I was looking at the CMHC recently, and they released the Housing Design Catalog, which proposes plan for housing that should work in each province.
Can you elaborate on that then? I mean, obviously in Manitoba, we've been talking about Churchill, we've been talking about movement of goods and minerals across the country and what part Manitoba could play. But what more do we actually know about the nation-building projects that the Carney government is planning?
Right. There's still details yet to come. This office is going to be called the Major Project Office. We know that the HQ will be in Calgary, but that there's going to be offices in major Canadian cities. The goal is to help reduce approval timeframe through expertise and assisting those great works. So we know that the appointed CEO is Don Farrell. He's from the energy sector, so oil and gas, but also hydro. So my best guess here is there's been talk about liquefied natural gas project, LNGs. So these necessitate factories, but also ports to export this liquefied natural gas. So, for example, we know that there's been energy issues in Europe with the conflict in Ukraine. So, sending that natural gas over there, there's going to be demands.
Carney spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday. What has he updated us, around the tariff talks? What does he have to say?
So this is always difficult because the negotiation continue to be conducted behind closed doors rather than in the public space. So what we know is mostly from the communication line. The sentiment conveyed recently is that the deal is still far to be done, according to Leblanc and Minister Leblanc, and that there's no time frame. He communicates that Canada will only sign when the deal is worth it. However, it seems like it's moving more to a sectoral approach for the time being, targeting each sector individually. So we're thinking about aluminum, steel, and lumber. But it's also really important to remember that most goods are still covered right now by the USMCA, and that this accord is set to be renegotiated in 2026. So that means that it's difficult to have a plan and have an accord if the more comprehensive plan is already being renegotiated next year.
Prime Minister Carney also spoke about the coming budget, and he used the term austerity measures. What might Canadians expect?
So we know that there's going to be budget increase in investment on housing and military. And from the press conference, we heard that healthcare transfer, education transfer, and transfer to individuals should not be affected. So that leaves the rest in question. And that should come from ministers themselves. They've been asked to find 7.5% in economies and moving to 15% over the next year. So that's going to be coming from the bottom up rather than the top down. I want to point out that the austerity word has been an odd choice and has been kind of removed from the communication line, given its very negative connotation, especially among Quebec voters, who in 2018, if I remember correctly, voted the provincial Liberal out for austerity budgets.
Mm. They're not going to want to use that word. There's going to be a whole bunch of people behind them saying, maybe change the language, even if you're going to tighten
rigor
up.
Instead of budget rigor.
Yeah, even if you're going to tighten your belt, right? What do you think the upcoming legislative session is going to be like? What are you watching for?
So I'm a student of public opinion. My dissertation is on public opinion, and so I will follow closely what the public's attention shifts. So between foreign policy, which is a policy owned by the Liberal, that was a ballot box question, and that's a little bit why they were elected in the first place. So that benefits them. And if there's a shift to more domestic issues, if that's going to be benefiting the opposition, so the Conservative and Pierre Poilievre, who had a big advance before the election on those issues. I'm also interested in how the PM continues to build distinction between him and Justin Trudeau through communication exercise. So, for example, rebranding the retreat as a planning meeting. And finally, I'll be watching for economic numbers, so unemployment increasing, the GDP being generally flat or diminishing, but also on the other end, rent prices in urban area going down, but the stock market still hitting record high. And finally, I'm really interested in the immigration policy of the temporary worker permits.
Reflecting a lot of Canadians' interests, obviously, Thomas. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
You as well. That's Thomas Galipeau, political scientist at the University of Toronto. Now, we will hear more about yesterday's meeting with Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, and his cabinet coming up on World Report. So other perspectives and analysis ahead. It's 3 minutes to 7 o'clock now. Let's go to Heather Wells for an update on our news headlines in Manitoba.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Premier Rob Canoe has offered provincial help to Hollow Water First Nation. A mass stabbing in that community yesterday left 8 people injured. An 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. 7 of the stabbing victims remain in hospital, and Canoe says it is the government's job to make sure people are safe both during critical incidents and in the aftermath. Housing and Addictions Minister Bernadette Smith says Manitoba is listening to public feedback as it looks for a new supervised consumption site location. This week, the government announced the site will no longer be at 200 Disraeli Freeway. Smith says they will take their time to make sure they pick the right spot. We'll hear the latest in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
In the forecast today, mostly cloudy, 9 degrees. The rain should be behind us. Mix of sun and cloud near noon. Windy today, winds northwest 30 to 50 in Winnipeg, and a high of 15. So at 9 in Winnipeg right now. Brandon mostly cloudy, 6. Thompson mostly clear right now, and 1 degree currently. Students in Evergreen School Division going back today. You're almost the last division. Swan Valley goes on Monday. Well, in the next hour of the show, we are going to be talking about what began as a campaign to raise more awareness about bipolar disorder and has now become a journey of healing. We're going to meet a Vancouver man who's been walking across Canada. He's going to be in studio with us as he's here in Manitoba. Also this weekend on Sunday, Winnipeg kids, get your favorite stuffed animals ready for your appointment with Dr. Goodbear. The 36th annual Teddy Bears Picnic is happening. We'll tell you all about the event this year. And then we will hear more from the Chief of Hollow Water and the Premier on that tragedy yesterday. Stay with us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. If you have a note on the commute, 788-3093. This is CBC. World Report's coming up next at 7.
Today on The Current.
There's two things we cannot do anything about. One is aging, and one is the elements.
Across Canada, it's hard to find care if you are a senior, but elders in Nunavut often end up having to move hundreds of kilometers away from their communities if they need help with daily living. How one group is changing that in the north, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Prime Minister Mark Carney says his key priorities for the next 6 months are set. He's discussed plans with his cabinet, and later this morning he'll update Canadians on what's coming next. For more on what we know so far, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, what are we expecting today? Not so much an announcement, but perhaps a series of moves by the Carney government?
That's right. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne was telling reporters yesterday this government understands it needs to make some smart economic adjustments here. Mark Carney's cabinet knows it can't wait to help the sectors that are under the most pressure right now, starting with the automotive industry, which has been begging the Liberals to rethink its electric vehicle mandate, which, starting next year, is otherwise going to require car companies that don't meet sales targets for electric vehicles to pay credits to automakers who do. Brian Kingston from the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association says that's a poor strategy if your goal is supposed to be supporting Canadian manufacturing.
Putting these arbitrary sales ratios in place and forcing these credit transfers is frankly preposterous.
The government's also under pressure to prop up the agriculture industry that continues to bear the brunt of Chinese tariffs that were slapped on in retaliation for Canada going along with U.S. demands for high tariffs on imports like electric vehicles that are made in China.
So, Janice, how might all of this fit in with the Carney government's push to ramp up defense spending?
Industry Minister Melanie Joly told reporters yesterday there is a way to boost the economy and build up Canada's military at the same time.
We're the only G7 country that doesn't have a defense industrial strategy. That time is up, and we're working on it.
The industry to watch in particular here is steel. Joly pointed out how up to now, it's mostly been focused on supplying automakers. But in addition to obvious uses like military shipbuilding, Canada's going to need a lot of construction steel to build trade infrastructure, ports. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has already stepped up with provincial money last month to help pivot steelmaking in Sault Ste. Marie to these emerging priorities. Will we see the Carney government follow suit with a fresh pot of federal money?
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
CBC News has learned an auto parts supplier in Oshawa, Ontario, plans to lay off 250 workers this month. It's one of the ripples being felt in the auto sector as U.S. tariffs targeting Canada's auto industry take effect, and General Motors cuts a third shift at its plant this fall. Rochelle Ravendran has more.
We're also frustrated that we can't provide all the answers right now to everybody, and that we are in a state of uncertainty.
That's Unifor Local 222 President Jeff Gray. He represents GM workers at the Oshawa plant and also workers for TFT Global Incorporated. TFT supplies auto parts and has around 800 workers on the line. For weeks, these workers have been staring at a termination notice posted above the punch-in clock at the factory. CBC News has seen a photo of the document. It says 248 TFT workers will be laid off at the end of the month. In a statement, the company said that operations depend on GM shifts. Flavio Volpe, president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, says Canadian workers throughout the supply chain are on edge.
You sign up to be an auto worker. You're going to go on your shift. You're going to get paid. You're going to raise your family. You're going to pay your rent. And now we've all a little bit political. We're all a bit anxious.
These job losses are the latest hit to Canada's auto sector amid ongoing U.S. tariffs. Union President Jeff Gray said there's hope TFT will delay the layoffs until early November. That's when GM is expected to cut the plant's third shift, though no date has been confirmed. The union warns that adding up laid-off GM workers, plus the hundreds of suppliers who also serve the line, means some 2,200 people could be out of work this fall. Rochelle Ravendran, CBC News, Oshawa.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is issuing a threat to Ukraine's allies. He says any Western troops deployed to Ukraine would be considered legitimate military targets for attack. Putin's comments come a day after French President Emmanuel Macron said 26 countries are ready to send troops to Ukraine. They'd be deployed to guarantee Ukrainian security in the event of a ceasefire with Russia. Moscow has repeatedly warned it will not accept foreign troops in Ukraine under any circumstances. Protests are happening across Israel ahead of the second anniversary of the October 7th Hamas attacks. There are demands the remaining Israeli hostages be brought home as Israel intensifies its assault on Gaza City. The Israeli military says it now controls 40% of the city. Sasha Petrusek is in Jerusalem this morning.
Israel's streets are filling with protesters, marking 700 days since the war in Gaza started, angry at the government for continuing to fight without bringing remaining hostages home. 48 of them, some 20 believed to be alive. Hamas militants released a video today showing 2 of these held in Gaza City, Israel's next military target and Hamas's most active base, says the IDF.
One of the only places in Gaza that we haven't operated at all.
Not in any sustained way, says IDF Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani. It's targeting remaining Hamas fighters.
Some of them have stayed in Gaza City from the beginning of the war, and some have moved back during the latest ceasefire with the aim of rebuilding and rearming.
The IDF says it already holds some 40% of Gaza City, with a major offensive ready to start in the coming days to occupy the rest. Artillery shelling has already hit tent cities where residents live, killing dozens, injuring many more. We heard the children screaming, says Ruhia Afana. What did they do to deserve to be hit like that? Palestinians have been told to leave the area, but many say they have nowhere to go, since even so-called safe areas have been targeted. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The Department of National Defense says search efforts are ongoing for a Canadian Armed Forces member missing in Latvia. Warrant Officer George Hole was reported missing on Tuesday. Hole is a vehicle technician with 408 Tactical Helicopter Squadron based in Edmonton. He's serving in Latvia as part of the Canadian-led NATO mission there. Latvian police are leading the investigation. Portuguese police are confirming 2 Canadians died in Lisbon's deadly funicular railway crash. Police say 11 of the 16 people killed were foreign tourists. Government officials are scheduled to release a preliminary report later today. Chris Brown reports from Lisbon.
Overnight, the wreckage of the Gloria lift was removed by an immense crane, which also took away the second, less seriously damaged funicular rail car that shared the same route up the steep, windy hill. The ripped-up rails and road underneath the wreckage hinted at the force of the crash Wednesday night. Police said identifying some of the 16 people killed has been a challenge, including the 2 Canadians.
So we were driving up, and all of a sudden there was no brakes in our cable car. It was going down fast with acceleration.
Rasha Abdo and her family had just started up the hill on the lower tram when it suddenly lurched backwards, and the higher tram came around the corner above them and crashed at very high speed.
And I told my husband, he's a doctor, please go up to see if you can rescue anyone. But he couldn't. It was already crashed, and there was no option to take out people.
The early speculation is that the cable connecting the 2 tram cars, which provided traction and stability, snapped. But the CEO of the company that maintained the railway said an inspection had just been done that morning and all was in order. Chris Brown, CBC News, Lisbon.
At least 15 people are dead in a bus crash in Sri Lanka. First responders rushed to the scene, a mountainous region nearly 300 kilometers east of the capital, Colombo. Officials say the bus was carrying local tourists returning from a holiday in the country's tea-growing region. The police spokesperson says the bus was driving fast, the driver lost control, and it collided with another vehicle. The bus then fell more than 300 meters down a cliff. Finally, the 50th Toronto International Film Festival is kicking off with a surge of patriotism. And last night, the world premiere of a documentary about the late, beloved Canadian actor John Candy.
This is a lovable guy. This is a guy who, the minute you see his face, you're going to smile.
He was amazingly funny.
Thank you.
He was one of the top performers out of all of them.
Dave Thomas, Eugene Levy, Steve Martin, and Dan Aykroyd, just some of the comedy legends who pay tribute to Candy in the documentary. The film, titled I Like Me, focuses on Candy's life as an actor and as a man whose talent, fame, and personality endure more than 3 decades after his passing. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday morning. I wish I could tell you we're warming up already, but we're pretty much as cool as yesterday. We will be a little bit better later today, and it'll be a lot less wet. So the forecast in just a moment. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. This hour on the program, what a tragic day. A mass stabbing in Hollow Water First Nation. It sends shockwaves across Manitoba. The community is small. 1,100 people live on reserve. RCMP say an 18-year-old woman was killed. The suspect, her brother, is dead after multiple people were also stabbed. This hour, we're going to hear from the chief of the community. We're also going to hear from Premier Wab Kinew, and we'll have the latest on what we understand about so far, about what transpired, coming up in our news. In addition, this hour on the show to something completely different. Sunday is the Teddy Bears Picnic. We'll get the very latest on the 36th annual event. But right now to those news headlines, as I mentioned, Heather Wells joins us. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Saskatchewan First Nation says it stands in solidarity with Hollow Water. A mass stabbing 3 years ago on the James Smith Cree Nation and a nearby community left 11 people dead and 17 injured. And the chief there at James Smith says they want Hollow Water to know they do not walk alone. Frustration for some not-for-profit organizations around Selkirk Avenue after a rash of theft that is costing thousands of dollars. Urban Circle Training Center and the North End Women's Center have both had their HVAC units stripped of copper and left unusable. Vicki Brown at Urban Circle is sad they're the target of petty theft by people in the community who they are trying to help. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, Abby Adeyemi, I have to say, you posted just a beautiful drone footage video that you took, and I reposted it on my Facebook page, Marcy Marcusa. Check it out there. And you took an aerial view of Winnipeg downtown, but because we have had rain of late, everything is so lush and green. It's just
lush and
gorgeous.
Green.
It makes the city look really nice.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you don't appreciate it when you don't see the view from above. So I just said, I'm just going to send the cameras up there and see what it really looks like this time of the year before the leaves begin to make, their transition to the fall colors. And it's still, I just was lucky to capture some greens.
I love it. You've also talked about, this is Abby's caption on this gorgeous video. Now, if you want to go to my Facebook page, please do. We made it shareable. He writes, downtown Winnipeg, pausing for a breath, where steel and skyline salute the workers who keep it all moving.
That was on Labor Day, just behind the rail tracks.
I love that. Okay, so have a look at that drone footage. Today, the rain's behind us in Winnipeg at least?
Yeah, cool and breezy day with a mix of sun and clouds in the forecast, and there's a slim chance of showers across most of the regions. Winnipeg right now, we are still at 9 degrees. It's cloudy outside. Through this morning, it's going to stay mostly cloudy. We do have a slim chance of showers before your lunch break, and then around the noon period, we'll see a break of a mix of sun and clouds with the winds coming from the northwest. It gets breezy at some point. Temperatures will warm up to 15 degrees. For the southern regions, we're looking at temperatures hovering between 5 and 9 degrees. Also cloudy in most regions in the south. A slim chance of showers possible in sports early this morning, and then most of the regions will see a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures will be between 13 and 15 degrees later in the day. Up north, we're seeing 1 in Thompson and about 9 the powerful influence Churchill. That's what we get today, with temperatures warming up to around 14 degrees up north. So it's more like kind of mid-teens. That's what we will be seeing today, with a slim chance of showers in the forecast. Winnipeg right now, mostly cloudy and 9 degrees outside.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get to Corey Funk now, who's popped in with a look at our commute.
Yes, very quiet commute overall. Actually, haven't heard of any major issues yet. But if you're out there, you see something going on, give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
7:15 a.m. is the time right now on CBC, and our first interview is with someone who's actually just walked his way into Winnipeg. He's from Vancouver, and he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder in 2022. Rakesh Kumar says the diagnosis changed his life. But when the newcomer from India would try to talk to people in his community about mental health, he says not enough people were willing to talk about it. So he started the conversation himself. And then he started to walk. Rakesh has spent the last 3 months walking from Vancouver to Toronto. And although his journey began, he says, as a form of advocacy, he says it's quickly become a journey also that has helped him with his own healing. So as I alluded to, he arrived in Winnipeg yesterday and he is now in studio. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, we just have to get your mic on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea first to walk across the country.
It's just I was when they diagnosed me with a PPD in 2022. So after that, I was just struggling and going back and forth hospitals and trying to kind of get up. And I came into Vancouver in 2024. So then they started an idea because I want to be real with everyone because I was in an addiction and a big deep addiction with a substance use because of mental health. And I had no idea what I'm doing, and I was just, kind of trying to, it's very hard to tell, kill myself. I was like, I lose all hope in my life, and I had no hope, nothing. And so one day the idea came.
So were you suicidal? Is that what you're?
It was, yeah, I was very,
at one point,
because I was like
You're
trying
struggling.
many times. I was trying to cut myself. That's how
Okay.
it used to be.
Yeah.
And I struggled a lot with that. But I was in a room and I didn't go out for 15 days, just staying inside and smoking. And that's all I used to do. And one day the idea came because, Terry Fox and it's all also in like Sikhism. They have a guru. He walked like around 4 to 5 countries on foot to do a spiritual awareness. And I got idea from those guys, from Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Terry Fox. So I thought without wasting life like that, I can do something. People who are struggling like me, and I can give them kind of hopes that we can change our life.
And you thought you'd start with a first step.
Yeah.
Can you, before I ask you more about your diagnosis, how do you describe, for people that don't know what it is, what is borderline personality disorder?
Borderline personality is very misunderstood disorder. So people mostly think they're manipulative, and you can't tell them they're struggling because they're gonna look normal, and they struggle daily in life. They have symptoms like unstable relationship, feeling suicidal, and sometimes they have a kind of intense impulsive behavior. So they don't think about to do anything. They do impulsive behavior. With that they face consequences bring more suicidal thoughts or everything.
How did your diagnosis in 2022 help you? You were hospitalized, and you say it changed everything. How did it help you understanding this?
That's what really changed my life, because before that I started feeling these kind of feelings when I was 10 years old back home in India. And there was no mental health awareness, and in a countryside, and every time it used to kind of go to priest or something, they're gonna say it's an evil spirit or something going on with me. That's how I used to struggle over there, and I always used to blame myself. Something is wrong with me. But when in 2022 they diagnosed me with the BPD, and then when I came home and I checked everything, the symptoms and everything was kind of correlating, and then I felt okay, this is a big relief in my life, because now I can see what's happening with me. So now I can kind of work out how I'm gonna manage my life.
You feel seen.
Yeah, that's what I felt seen.
How is mental health perceived in the South Asian community, in your view? You talked about, back in India what it was like, but even here in South Asian communities, what do you hope people understand about mental health? What are the stigmas that still exist?
Stigma is that it's not nobody's fault in my community, because they don't know how to support it. If somebody is feeling suicidal, if somebody is feeling low, so they don't know how to support it. That's what the big stigma is. And if somebody say I'm feeling kind of lonely or suicidal, and they just kind of sometimes go away from him, they feel like it's kind of big problem for them, and he's gonna kind of bring a problem for us too if he did something to himself
Got
or
it.
themselves. That's how big stigma is.
Is it isolating then? Would a person be isolated then almost because the community
Yeah,
doesn't know
because
how to deal with
you
it?
can't share with them, and this kind of also a big label is just
Yeah.
gonna say crazy. That's the one label they give you. There's no like kind of diagnose or anything disorder name.
Does that what you talked about in India and as being a kid and being misunderstood, and also the sort of the way you described it was that there's some kind of an evil spirit inhabiting you or something. Does that persist here as well?
Not here.
Got
with this
it.
kind
That's
of
more back.
yeah.
So this journey, you describe this as obviously you're raising awareness, all kinds of it, even by being here this morning and talking about your story. What's it been like for you to hear from others along the way, and how's it helped you this journey?
Oh, I met many people who are like struggling with the BPD. I heard their stories, and I can see that their pain and suffering and their struggle is valid, because I went through all of that, pain and suffering. And when I see them, when I see listen their story, and it's kind of touches me. And but the way they kind of get encouraged by this, like okay, someone is walking for BPD.
Mhm.
That's what I feel good, because they get encouraged by this. Is like, okay, somebody's really knows what BPD is, and he's walking for us. That's what the big milestone for me in my life.
I understand that when you've been in Canada across some of the as well the rural communities,
Yes.
you've made some connections there
Yeah.
as well. Tell me a little bit about that, the conversations and interactions you've had, but also on Instagram too. You've been connecting with folks.
Yeah. Like in BC, I crossed to BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Even in Manitoba, I went through many towns. And the towns, oh my God, it's a beautiful place and peaceful. Nobody's, kind of bothering you. You can just stay anywhere, and people are very welcoming. And they appreciated me a lot. And because I started this journey, to be honest, without single penny, there was no sponsor or anything. And they are the one who are moving me town by town, and they see me, they say like, don't worry, you're doing good thing. That's why they appreciated me. That's how I'm moving every town by town. Even in my community, in like small towns, whoever I met, they helped me a lot with that.
Are you finding Asian communities and Indian communities in the towns you've been in? Or I guess it depends on the town.
It depends on a town.
Yeah.
Because in BC, I've seen a little bit Asian community. In small towns, but in Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, it's very less. It's just like kind of small cities I've seen over there.
Why is it important that your cultural community, if because you have obviously we have many communities we belong
Yes,
to, but your cultural community, why is it important that your cultural community understands this in your view? Because as you said, you don't see this as a failure or a problem or a fault, but you do see that it's important to raise awareness. Why is that important?
Important is that because there are many people like me in our community who are struggling with that and who need help. Because with mental health, mainly in our community, if nobody can say anything to anyone, especially in men's, there's a big stigma like men's don't cry, men's don't feel pain. That's a big stigma in our community. And so the thing is like when they don't share, they take a support from, kind of substance or alcohol. That's what helped them a lot with this. So then they get into addiction, and nobody knows what's going on with them. And they get, kind of unsupportive, and nobody knows. And then they get judged because they're doing, kind of addiction things. That's how the big thing in our community. And it's very hard to live.
Well, good for you for standing up on your
Yeah,
healing
I'm
journey.
telling them
for so
because
many others.
somebody has to come, front of everyone. Because the thing is like everybody's seeing, they know what's going on, but nobody's trying to, kind of come front to show them like this is real. We have to be, kind of get together to talk about this mental health.
And how the supports can look.
Yeah.
Rakesh, where are you going next? After Manitoba, where are you walking next?
I'm going to be on Highway 1 to Kenora.
Okay.
Yeah, then I'm taking all the way Highway 17.
Well, we're sorry it's been so cold while you've been here.
Yeah, it is. But
it's not normal. It's
getting
usually
prepared.
warmer.
I'm getting prepared. But it's really beautiful land. BC has like different beauty.
Yeah, of course.
And when you come down to Alberta, it has different land, and that's amazing. Saskatchewan is kind of very hard to walk, but the thing is, like, it teaches us like about patience, like how to walk with patience.
It sure does. There's a lot of flat land across Sask and Manitoba. Thank you very much for being here. Good luck on your journey.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
That is Rakesh Sharma, who lives with a borderline personality disorder. He's walking across the country, Vancouver to Toronto. He's now in Winnipeg, obviously, in studio here. He's raising mental health awareness in all communities, but also in his Indian community. He will be on his way, as he mentioned, to Kenora. It is 25 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are listening to Information Radio, the morning show here on CBC. And Scott Regehr joins us now live with sports. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
Well, speaking of Saskatchewan, we better start with football, huh? Rev up your banjo.
Yeah, that time of the year, Marcy, and tomorrow's Banjo Bowl comes with some added incentive for the Bombers after being beaten by the Riders last week in Regina. A win will keep Winnipeg's hopes for a home playoff game alive, while another loss to Saskatchewan could see the Bombers struggling just to make the postseason down the stretch. Now, it helps that Princess Auto Stadium will once again be packed tomorrow. Coach Mike O'Shea was asked about the importance of home support.
The crowd will determine that, and I do think there is a little different level of excitement for this game than maybe others. Should there be? I don't know. But when you ask about the level of excitement or what we notice, that's really up to the crowd to bring it so that we do notice it.
All right. You're on notice, Winnipeg faithful. One player the Bombers fans will not get to cheer for tomorrow is receiver Dalton Schoen. Schoen's much-anticipated return lasting just one game as he suffered another non-contact knee injury against the Riders. Did have a touchdown while he was playing. But all the more responsibility then will land on running back Brady Oliveira's shoulders, and hopefully the reigning most outstanding player, Marcy, will have more touches than he did last week, just 10. And the game before that against Montreal, he was lights out. He was all over the field. So hopefully Brady will be more involved tomorrow. It's certainly a beautiful day, 20 degrees and sunshine, the forecast for the 4 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, it looks not bad. So let's get into what's happening for a couple of, it's a tall task, but potentially a very rewarding task for a few Canadian tennis stars, and that starts today.
Yeah, Gabby Dabrowski is first up. The Ottawa native Marcy has a chance alongside her partner Erin Routliffe to win the U.S. Open women's doubles title this afternoon. It won't be easy. They'll take on the top seeds, Taylor Townsend and Katerina Sinikova. At stake in this tournament is the most lucrative of the Grand Slams, is $1 million in prize money. That is only a fraction, though, of what Felix Auger-Aliassime will collect if he wins the men's singles title. But to collect the champion's fee of $5 million, the Montrealer has to make the final first, and few are betting on that happening considering his opponent. That's defending champion and world number 1 Jannik Sinner. Asked about the daunting task ahead, Auger-Aliassime wasn't forgetting the importance of humor.
Jannik, not many strengths, huh? A lot of weaknesses in this game. What to say about, Jannik's game? He's been obviously, untouchable at times, but honestly, the next match, I'm not really going to focus on my opponent more than myself. I need to play good tennis. Regardless of tactically what I want to do, I need to play at a high level in the next round as well. There's no other way.
For context, Marcy, Sinner's only lost to one player not named Carlos Alcaraz this year. That's Alex Bublik. And you know what happened to him? Sinner earlier this week extracted revenge against Bublik, beating him in 1 hour and 20 minutes. An average men's match lasts 3 hours, so that was pretty short work. After that match was done, Bublik went right online and posted a photo of Sinner with a simple caption that read, AI. So beating an opponent so good he defies reality is Auger Aliassime's task tonight. Good luck to him. That match begins at 6 Central.
And quick, let's finish with basketball. Former Raptors being honored.
Yeah, Spicy P, or maybe we should call him Dr. Spicy P. Pascal Siakam, Marcy, has been awarded an honorary Doctor of Letters degree by the University of New Brunswick. This is for the work he does helping young students pursue careers in computer science and technology. Siakam says his father, Chamo, is the main catalyst in the man he is today, and that as much as his dad always wanted his son to play pro basketball, he would have been far prouder of Pascal being awarded this degree. So well done, Pascal Siakam.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Sounds good.
All right, that's Scott Regier with Morning Sports. And I hate to break it to everybody, Scott said tomorrow's 20 degrees. I think we're only going to get to 15. More in the forecast after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 9, and we will be drier and warmer than yesterday. Today, we are headed, as Marcy says, to 15, but then the warm-up begins through the weekend. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has offered provincial help to Hollow Water. A mass stabbing in that Manitoba First Nation yesterday left 8 people injured. An 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. 7 of the stabbing victims remain in hospital. Kinew says it is government's job to ensure people are safe, both during critical incidents and in the aftermath.
Somebody with a gun, somebody with a badge needs to show up when something bad is happening. But we also, as Manitobans, know that for the long-term safety of our communities, we have to help with healing. We have to help with supports.
Kinew says the police officer involved in that crash with the suspect stopped a man on a rampage. The Premier calls her a hero. She did suffer serious injuries in that crash, but is expected to make a full recovery. A Saskatchewan First Nation says it stands in solidarity with Hollow Water. A mass stabbing 3 years ago on the James Smith Cree Nation and a nearby community left 11 people dead and 17 injured. In a statement on social media, the First Nation says, "From our nation to theirs, we send strength, compassion, and the reminder they are not alone." It goes on to say, "We walk together in spirit." You can hear the latest on the Hollow Water story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. Frustration for some not-for-profit organizations along Selkirk Avenue after a rash of theft that is costing thousands of dollars. Urban Circle Training Center and the North End Women's Center have both had their HVAC units stripped of copper and left unusable. Vicki Brown at Urban Circle is sad they're the target of petty theft by people they're trying to help in the community.
It's disheartening, honestly, because we feel like a lot of people in the community know what we're all about and what we do here, and that we're an education center and we're bettering people's lives. And we would think that they wouldn't do something like that.
Urban Circle would like to see government and law enforcement crack down on metal theft and use the Scrap Metal Act to make it harder for people to buy and sell stolen metals. Housing and Addictions Minister Bernadette Smith says Manitoba is listening to public feedback as it looks for a new supervised consumption site location. The government announced earlier this week the site will no longer be at 200 Disraeli Freeway. Smith says they will take their time to ensure they pick the right spot.
Community wants to make sure that there's primary health care in there, that there's treatment and recovery supports, that there's mental health supports, that people can get access to housing. We know that's super important to stabilize people.
The proposed site drew stiff opposition from some people in Point Douglas, concerned about it being close to daycare center and a school, among other things. The government said the new location will be at least 250 meters away from such facilities. 2 Canadians are now confirmed to be among the dead in this week's funicular crash in Lisbon. Portuguese police say 11 of the 16 people killed in that incident were tourists. The funicular went off the rails Wednesday night. Crews have now removed the wreckage, with government officials scheduled to release a preliminary report later today. We are expecting an announcement today from Prime Minister Mark Carney on the Liberals' plan to help some of the industries hardest hit by U.S. and Chinese tariffs. You can hear the latest on that story, as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. 13 Southeast Manitoba communities will be able to double their population after a new $235 million wastewater treatment plant is built near Niverville. One of those communities is New Bothwell, home of Bothwell cheese. Red Seine Rat wastewater co-op consultant Gordon Damon says the plant allows industry growth and potentially more cheese.
A lot of us enjoy eating the cheese. One of the challenges for Bothwell cheese is they want to expand by about 25 to 30%. For them to expand, it's nearly impossible for them to expand reasonably utilizing just a regular lagoon system. It could be done, but it would be fairly expensive. But having a wastewater treatment, now that can actually be treated as if they were in any large urban area.
Tenders for the plant are due today. A builder is expected to be announced in October, with construction completed in 4 to 5 years. The 6 municipalities who own the co-op are hosting public meetings for next week, including Richat, Hanover, Taché, La Broquerie, de Salaberry, and Niverville. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I am absolutely 100% addicted to cheese.
I know more. Isn't there a commercial that says more cheese?
Oh, I love cheese. Someone on the weekend actually said to me, I don't know why you get extra cheese in a pizza. And I'm like, you're not my people.
Well, you know what? So I love cheese, but I don't love melted cheese. It
Really?
seems greasy. I just want cheese on a cracker.
I love melted cheese so much that in the 80s, I'm going to sound like I'm 900 years old, but when microwaves weren't around, you would put it in a foil and put it in the oven. We wait for it to melt. And me and my mom would sit there with crackers and have it out of the, And then the microwave came and it ruined everything because now it's too easy to melt cheese. But thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
I have a lot to say about cheese.
I know what to
clearly.
get you for Christmas now.
100%.
Yeah.
I will always love it. Any kind. Bring it on. Let's get to what's going on in the forecast right now. It's kind of eating melty cheese weather still. We're not quite warming up today. A little better than yesterday, though, Abby.
Yeah, a little better than yesterday. Still cool start to the day. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds somewhere in between, and then a slim chance of showers for most of the regions. We're already seeing a light rain in the powerful influence region as we speak. Winnipeg right now 9 degrees, mostly cloudy outside. Expect a high of 15 degrees with the winds coming from the northwest. A slim chance of showers sometime before your lunch break, and then tonight we'll see temperature will be dropping to around 4 degrees. In the Pembina Valley region, from Morden, Winkler to the Morris down to the U.S. border, 7 degrees we're seeing. Anticipate a high of 14 degrees with the winds coming from the northwest. It's going to gust about 50 kilometers later in the day. Slim chance of showers also in the forecast. Temperatures deep to 4 degrees later tonight. The Westman region, Brandon, Nipper, Verdun, all the way down to Surrey and surrounding regions, we're sporting 5 degrees and 6 degrees in that area. Partly cloudy this morning. Expect a high of 14 with the winds coming from the northwest, also gusting up to 40 kilometers later. A slim chance of showers possible this afternoon. In the Parkland region, from Dauphin, Roblin, Russell, all the way down to the Riding Mountain region, we're seeing temperature hover around 7 and 6 degrees this morning. Partly cloudy skies we're seeing. Anticipate a high of 13 degrees with the winds coming from the northwest, gusting all the way to 40 kilometers later. A slim chance of showers in the forecast. In the Interlake region, Gimli's around 9 degrees right now. Cloudy there. Expect a high of 15 degrees today. A slim chance of showers also possible before your lunch break. In the northern region, the powerful influence surrounding areas, we have light rain there as we speak. 9 degrees we're spotting in that area. Expect a high of 13 degrees today, and more showers still in the forecast later tonight. Thompson is sunny at this time. It's going to warm up a bit, but we're still at 1 degree there in Thompson. Anticipate a high of 14 degrees with the winds coming from the north, gusting all the way to 40 kilometers later. Churchill, you're sitting at 7 degrees, partly cloudy. We're trying to see the sun make its appearance there. Expect a high of 10 degrees today with the winds just gusting all the way to 50 kilometers. A mix of sun and clouds expected and a slim chance of showers. So it's more like a cool start with a breezy day ahead and a mix of sun and clouds. Slim chance of showers in all the regions today. Winnipeg, mostly cloudy right now, 9 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
The commute, Corey, I guess we're kind of used to seeing the teachers and kids now. There's one more division going back today, Evergreen. Swan Valley goes back Monday, but otherwise, we've had a few days now of busy Winnipeg streets at least.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone remembers how to drive in busy conditions, and it seems like there hasn't been any major issues yet. But if you do see anything going on out there, though, if you're walking, biking, driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, speaking of the kiddos, it's nice that the weather on Sunday is going to be nice, sunny and 19, as Abby said, because the Bear is back. Every year, the Children's Hospital Foundation of Manitoba invites Winnipeg kids and their favorite stuffies to spend the day at Assiniboine Park. This year's not different. On Sunday, friendly bears and kids who own them will take over the park in Winnipeg. To learn more about what to expect at the Teddy Bears Picnic, we have reached Children's Hospital Foundation CEO Stefano Grande. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I know I'm up early and I have a shift flipping pancakes, and then I'm going to the main stage to help out with emceeing. I've been to the picnic a lot of times, but I just want to start because there's some listeners that maybe have never been, Stefano, to the Teddy Bears Picnic. Tell us a little bit more about the event and why it's special here.
Well, it's an institution. It's back this Sunday at Assiniboine Park, 9 to 4. And of course, the pancake breakfast. Come early. The lineup is going to be huge. It's an important day because it's all about kids. It's all about caregivers. It's about families. It's about really, getting to learn about our healthcare system and our frontline staff who are there to provide information, education, and a fun way to all the kids and families that are attending the Teddy Bear Picnic this year. As an example, the I Want to Be a Scientist tent is back. We have over 400 scientists in our community trying to find those cures to those diseases. And we're going to have some fun with the kids that day on Sunday, and teach them what it is like to be a scientist and take them through some experiments. And then, of course, we have our Dr. Good Bear tent. This is where we want every child to bring a stuffy, bring a good bear, and let's take the child and the teddy bear through the Good Bear tent, where the kids will have an experience of triaging the triage system, taking their teddy bear to go triage through a variety of medical tests, whether it's an MRIs or X-rays or casting. It gives a child a bit of an experience of what that healthcare system is like in a fun and great way. And of course, the entire day is filled with fun and activity and games and entertainment. We have a musical therapy tent. We've got food trucks. We have teddy pig games. There's the popcorn factory. There's a lot of things for kids to do to be entertained while having a great Sunday. Perhaps one of the last great Sundays this summer, but let's hope not.
I always love the tent where the kids fix the bears, because if your bear has a boo-boo, obviously that's fun and it's cute, but it also can help kids if they end up themselves in the hospital to sort of understand what maybe that's going to be like, and that there's caring people there and how all these things work. Remind us where the money raised at the picnic, where does it go?
The Children's Hospital Foundation of Manitoba, through the generosity of Manitobans, are really able to do some wonderful things, improving research, funding research care, improving child clinical care, whether it's purchasing medical equipment, life-saving equipment, whether it's building our new Indigenous healing room, whether it's improving our emergency department, which is about to go through in construction over the next 6 months. The generosity of Manitobans is part of the healthcare system, and this is a great way of just creating that interface between kids, families, our researchers, our doctors and nurses, the ones on the front lines taking care of our kids.
36 years since the first picnic. Do you have fond memories yourself of back in the day and bringing your own kids, Stefano?
Yeah, 3 boys. Of course, this is a staple for September. Although the Teddy Bear Picnic used to be in May, but we moved it after COVID. We thought September would bring warmer weather, and it has so far. Yeah, just having some time to spend with the kids is difficult for parents. And here's a weekend with activities that are free, that allow families to be together, caregivers to be together. The number of strollers that are there is something that always reminds me of the Teddy Bear Picnic. It's a great way of having the kids be active, get engaged, learn about the healthcare system, and of course, I've lost many teddy bears. My kids have lost many teddy bears at the events, but one way or another, the staff always seem to get those teddy bears back to me and the families that lose them and the kids. So
I'll have to go downstairs and get Pinky out, my little pink panther. He has a neck that's flopped over and he might need sort of a brace, but I've never brought him. So maybe on Sunday I'll have to bring Pinky. I was looking at the main stage, Stefano. Thunderbird Singers kicking it off. There's an opening blessing, Inuit throat singing. There's hoop dancing. There's ballet. And then there's magic shows. I mean, there's all kinds of things on the main stage. I want our last question, though, to be about like a practical one. So whether someone's been and they know it's busy or they're going their first time, do you have advice for families when it comes to planning their day, or if folks are pushing strollers and carrying a bunch of stuff, what parking will be like? Like, what's your advice actually logistically about the picnic on Sunday?
All that information is found on goodbear.ca. There's park and ride opportunities. We want to encourage people to walk, to take their bike, to take transit. And of course, there's parking available at Assiniboine Park. Wear your running shoes, bring a water bottle, be prepared for the weather changing. It says it's sunny in 19, but it could change. So bring a jacket. But above all, bring your kids, have some fun, be engaged. This is a great way of celebrating our community.
Congratulations on another year. Here's to a successful event. Thank you very much for being with us this morning on CBC. We'll see you Sunday.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Stefano Grande, the president and CEO of the Children's Hospital Foundation of Manitoba. So the Teddy Bears Picnic at Assiniboine Park on Sunday. It goes from 9 to 4 o'clock. And we mentioned some of the events. You can go to goodbear.ca/event/Teddy Bear Picnic to find out more. 7:45 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and on YouTube. Well, it's mostly cloudy in Winnipeg and 9 degrees here. Friday, September 5th, and a big day if you're a music fan of Justin Bieber. Fans couldn't believe their eyes when London, Ontario-born pop star Bieber announced just yesterday he was dropping a surprise album at midnight. As you might have heard on World Report, part of why this was such a big surprise is this is called Swag 2. It's a sequel to Swag 1, but Swag just dropped in July. And now there's more new music. Here's one of the brand new tracks. Here's Justin Bieber and Speed Demon.
I don't really need a reason to star you. That's all you. Don't pretend I got a reason to call you. It's not true. I only got a couple people to talk to, and it's not you. Yeah. And I don't even got the patience to argue. So are you out of your mind? I got a lot of reasons to fight. I got a lot of reasons to drive over you, but I put my pride to the side. I put my never stop. Had to take a turn and turn it into something that's new. Say you miss me, wasn't missing is a cock in you. Wait and see, cause it's something new and improved. Yeah, yeah. Keep checking these chickens. Yeah, and I go speed racing for the record. Yeah, and I achieve greatness, getting better by the second. Yeah, and I go speed racing. We ain't finished just yet. Don't stress it, baby. I keep creeping. A speed demon. So keep dreaming. I can't see him. A speed demon. Yeah, they try to say I'm out of my mind, but now they're singing every line. Got a lot of mountains to climb. Had to leave some baggage behind. And there's something that's wrong with me that's paving me a new lane and giving me an energy. And there's something in the way she made me certain I'm enough every day. She put the loving on me. And all the people that be doubting on me, they gave me witness my redemption. Now they up on my seat, got them tapping their feet. Had to put my heart on my sleeve. Yeah, he's checking these chickens. Yeah, and I go speed racing for the record. Yeah, and I achieve greatness, getting better by the second. Yeah, and I go speed racing. We ain't finished just yet. Don't stress it, baby. Fast forward until we find it. And press stop and then we rewind it. And
New music from Justin Bieber, Speed Demon, a surprise drop of his sequel album to an album he just came out in July called Swag. This is Swag 2, out now.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
10 to 8 is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and in our community here in Manitoba, there's been a lot of troubling news of late. So after 8 o'clock, we are going to hear from a criminologist who's going to weigh in after the story about 4 young teens who were arrested and charged in an armed robbery at a Unicity Walmart developed earlier this week. And we got details about these young people. The youngest was just 13 years old. We're going to talk to this criminologist about the nature of this crime and the nature of the young people, involved and how to get ahead of incidents like this. So we're going to look at that after 8 o'clock in more detail. And then, as I mentioned, serious news, leading the news this morning, the tragedy that unfolded yesterday. Let's go to some of the sentiment coming out of, to say the least, a difficult day in this province. A mass stabbing in southeastern Manitoba that left 2 people dead and 7 others injured started developing in the early hours of yesterday morning. RCMP say the suspect, Tyrone Simard, stabbed and killed his 18-year-old sister before going on a rampage in the community of Hollow Water First Nation. That's about 160 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg, but 1,100 people live there. It's a small community. Among the 7 victims, an RCMP officer was also seriously injured after her vehicle responded and then crashed into Simard's car on Highway 304. Simard died at the crash scene, but the officer is expected to make a full recovery. Now, this tragedy has shaken up a close-knit community. Hollow Water First Nation Chief Larry Barker was close with the families impacted. We heard a bit of him on the news. We have more of what he had to say now. He got emotional as he spoke at a press conference with police.
My deepest condolences to my community and every member that's out there. This tragedy that happened early this morning, I can't comment on anything right now of what has happened because the RCMPs are doing their investigation. But I ask the community to pray and support one another out there. And my prayers goes to the people that are in the hospital right now, recovering. Now, and I'll ask the community to continue to pray for them, for their recovery. And I'll be going out there to visit them, the families. The families was very close to me. And my deepest condolences to the family right now. So I'll pray as hard as I could for the recovery. And that's all I'd like to say right now. Community to get together, do their prayers, support one another right now.
Speaking yesterday, that was Hollow Water First Nation Chief Larry Barker. Now, Premier Wab Kinew also yesterday offering his condolences to the families of the victims and also to the community. As well, he thanked RCMP and the officer specifically who was injured in the crash as she tried to stop the suspect as he fled the community in a stolen vehicle. Here's the Premier.
Oh, this feels tragic in Manitoba today. This is a time of year where we're sending our kids back to school. Many of us as parents did that this week. And instead, we have a community that is preparing to bury its young. It's a time of year in this province where we harvest the bounty of the land. And yet we have some of our fellow Manitobans in hospital consoling their loved ones who were the victims of something terrible here. One of whom is a police officer who we're still finding out the details of what happened about, but we can say that she is a hero. We don't know the specifics yet. We will in the coming days, I'm sure. But she stopped a man on a rampage. So on behalf of the province of Manitoba, I thank her. And I send my sincere condolences to the family members of the victim and also to the survivors. I send you our best encouragement for your healing. To the leadership and to the community members of Hollow Water, our hearts are with you. Our hearts feel very heavy. And we will be there to support you in the ways that are necessary. In these difficult moments, I want to thank our first responders, the RCMP, the paramedics, the STARS Air Ambulance teams that responded to keep people safe and to begin the process of nursing people back to life. I want to acknowledge the medical leadership and the frontline staff at the hospitals, at the Health Sciences Centre and in Selkirk. This is what we see of the best of Manitoba. People stepping up to help those in need during a time of crisis, and doing so with grace and with courage. So we say thank you. I also want to acknowledge that this is personal for one of the members of our team in your provincial government. Our Minister of Natural Resources and Indigenous Futures, Ian Bushy, is a band member of Chief Barker's community, is a proud citizen of Hollow Water First Nation, and is, as we speak at home, reeling in the way that his fellow community members are. And so I'll be traveling to go see my friend later today and to offer him encouragement and support through this unimaginable moment. There's a lot that we need to do to respect the investigation that's going on with the RCMP right now, but what I will share publicly is that I've offered our government's support to Chief Barker and to the leadership and to the community members of Hollow Water First Nation to ensure safety. And I say this to everyone in Manitoba. Our primary responsibility is always to ensure your safety as Manitobans. And when something like this happens, the immediate response needs to be law enforcement. Somebody with a gun, somebody with a badge needs to show up when something bad is happening. But we also, as Manitobans, know that for the long-term safety of our communities, we have to help with healing. We have to help with supports. We have to help with the encouragement necessary for those who are really, really struggling. And here I'm not talking about the suspect. We bring the hammer down on those responsible. I'm talking about people who are suffering in community, who are battling addictions, who are battling unresolved trauma, who are the victims of terrible abuse when they're young. We will be there with compassion and support for them. And so that's how we're going to work together to support this community. A community that did nothing to deserve this, a community that's full of great people that I've had the pleasure to visit on many occasions. We will be there with a swift and strong response to ensure that there is safety in the immediate sense, but we'll also be there with the compassion and support to ensure that there's safety there in the longer term sense.
Premier Wab Kinew speaking yesterday at the RCMP news conference about what happened in Hollow Water. The Powerview RCMP, along with the RCMP Major Crime Services, continue to investigate. We will report information as we're able to. And the community reaction, of course, continues this morning. So we'll have more in the news. Let's go to headlines with Heather Wells.
Well, Canada's unemployment rate is on the rise. Statistics Canada says it moved up to 7.1% as 66,000 jobs were lost in August. We'll hear some Manitoba numbers in our next local news at 8:30.
World Report is next on 89.3.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Anne Murray is here to reflect on her record-breaking career, her new album, which includes songs she recorded between the 70s and the 90s, and why it didn't take much convincing for her to be in an episode of Family Guy.
First of all, I just want to tell you what a huge fan I am.
Aw, that's very sweet of you.
Q. this morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Across Canada, it's hard to find care if you are a senior, but elders in Nunavut often end up having to move hundreds of kilometers away from their communities if they need help with daily living. How one group is changing that in the north, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Canada's economy continues to shed jobs. The latest numbers from Statistics Canada are out, and they show 66,000 jobs were lost last month, the second straight month of decline. It pushes the unemployment rate up to 7.1%. The CBC's senior business correspondent, Peter Armstrong, has more.
This is worse than expected, and expectations weren't exactly high to begin with. It extends the job losses we've seen since the beginning of the year. The unemployment rate is the highest we've seen outside of the COVID pandemic since 2016. StatCan says now 1.6 million Canadians were unemployed in August. And if you look into the specific sectors, you can see a bit of a trend there too. High-skilled, technical, professional, and scientific services, transportation and warehousing, manufacturing, those were the sectors hardest hit. Ontario, BC, and Alberta, that's where the job losses were concentrated. Now, for all of that doom and gloom, there is one sort of caveat here. Of the 66,000 jobs lost, 60,000 were part-time. Full-time work was little changed, in the words of StatCan. And that's good, but clearly not enough to offset this wave of lousy jobs data right across the economy. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
That latest economic news will surely factor into Prime Minister Mark Carney's decisions as he plots out the next 6 months. He and his cabinet have spent the past 2 days discussing their key priorities, and later this morning, Carney will update the public on the government's efforts to build a stronger Canada in the face of U.S. tariffs.
Canada is a story whose best chapters are yet to be written.
Carney's announcement on those key sectors happens in about 2 hours. Russian President Vladimir Putin is warning Ukraine's allies any troops they deploy to Ukraine would be considered legitimate military targets. Yesterday, French President Emmanuel Macron announced that more than 24 countries are ready to send troops to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire. Crystal Gamansing has more Kremlin reaction.
Talk of the war in Ukraine spilled over into a Russian economic forum. Vladimir Putin said foreign military contingents in Ukraine will be legitimate targets for destruction. One of the justifications the Kremlin gave for the full-scale invasion was to protect itself from NATO, as Ukraine was seeking to join the military alliance. In the years since, NATO has grown. Finland joined in 2023, Sweden the next year. Now there are commitments from 26 nations for an international post-war reassurance force for Ukraine.
What's happening with the coalition of the willing is even bigger than Russia and Ukraine.
Admiral Tony Radakin was until this week the chief of the defense forces in the UK and one of those military leaders making plans for the coalition of the willing.
It's much more about European security, this adjustment with America, the reassurance to America that Europe is taking more responsibility for its security, the energizing of Europe.
Putin says if a lasting peace is achieved, there would be no need for international troops in Ukraine, that Moscow would respect a peace deal. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The U.S. is warning Venezuela against what it's calling provocative moves in the Caribbean. It says Venezuela flew 2 military planes near one of its ships in the region. The U.S. has recently bulked up its presence to counter drug trafficking. The CBC's Willie Lowry has more from Washington. Willie, what's going on?
So, John, this is all an extension of President Donald Trump's long-held desire to curb the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S. Now, the administration has been pretty clear in recent days that it's willing to go on the offensive. Earlier this week, Trump released footage that he said showed a strike on a boat allegedly full of drugs and members of a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua. Now, that strike raises serious legal questions, and it's unclear what authority the U.S. has to take actions like that in international waters. Here's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth defending the strike.
If you're trafficking drugs and you're a known cartel entity, a designated terror organization, and they're headed for the United States or part of a process that would head to the United States, that will have lethal consequences. The poisoning of the American people is over.
And there's been a bit of a war of words between Washington and Caracas. And this incident where 2 jets flew near U.S. ships appears to be the latest escalation.
Willie, this as the U.S. Defense Department is now going through a rebrand. What are they doing?
The name change harkens back to a different era. Up until shortly after the Second World War, it was the Department of War, and the administration has been determined to rebrand the military. Hegseth has made rooting out so-called wokeness a major part of his short tenure. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order later today.
CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
The UN says South Sudan is facing a growing humanitarian crisis. The influx of refugees from Sudan's civil war and chronic food insecurity have brought the healthcare system to a breaking point. And it's being made worse by cuts to foreign aid budgets in the United States and other Western nations. Caitlin Kelly reports.
At a hospital in Maban, South Sudan, midwife Awatif Dawa injects medicine into the IV of a newborn. It's one of the last remaining doses.
I'm so worried that because these are very important medications and it's life-saving.
80% of South Sudan's healthcare system is funded by foreign aid. But after years of funding cuts and now the recent sharp reduction in US aid, the healthcare system is on its knees.
We lack giving sets for blood transfusion. That's one difficult thing that for now, the cases that we have to transfuse, we improvise.
South Sudan ranks last on the UN's Human Development Index. More than 70% of the population relies on aid. A UN-backed food monitoring group says 7.7 million people, including 2.3 million children, are facing acute food insecurity. Mary Abdullah said she feared her baby Jote might not survive when she arrived at the hospital. Jote is just over a year old and only weighs about 11 pounds. But today there is no milk for her to drink. Nurses say because of the cuts, those supplies are being rationed. Even those providing the care don't have enough to eat. Outside the hospital, several nurses, including Jacob Zachariah Kamis, are on strike.
I'm here today because we have been staying for 6 months without salary.
The UN says South Sudan needs $1.7 billion in aid this year. So far, it's only secured about 30% of that figure. Caitlin Kelly for CBC News, Maban, South Sudan.
Police in Ontario say they've solved a decades-old cold case in Algonquin Provincial Park. Human remains were discovered there in 1980, and now, 4 decades later, police have used DNA to identify the body and track down some family members. Emma Weller has the story.
I identified myself as a police officer from Ontario, Canada. And the next words out of her mouth was, "Is this about my brother?"
It was a phone call Detective Sergeant Philip Holmes with Ontario Provincial Police won't forget, calling Ruth Singer to let her know after nearly 50 years they've found her brother's body.
Right away, she burst into tears. But it was tears, I could tell right away that they were tears of happiness, tears of relief.
Her brother Eric Singer from Cleveland, Ohio, left home in October 1973. His other sister told police he left on his bike with a backpack and they never heard from him again. Fast forward to today, police have identified his remains in Algonquin Park. Holmes says the investigation began in 1980.
A hiker was cutting off trail from one trail to another and came across a human skull laying on the ground.
It turned into a cold case until the police force began using investigative genetic genealogy. It works to match DNA with potential family members. Matthew Waterfield is with the DNA Doe Project, who police turned to in 2022. Waterfield says a match was made in less than 24 hours, which is lucky.
To be able to reunite him with his identity so quickly, provide answers to his family without a grueling years-long search, was a tremendous relief.
This summer, both of the sisters visited the trail where their brother spent his final days. Emma Weller, CBC News, Ottawa.
Song of the Summer? How about Surprise Song of the Summer?
This is for the people making the most to find out no way.
New music there from Justin Bieber, part of a brand new album released at midnight last night. It's called Swag 2, and fans didn't see it coming because the prequel, Swag, was just released in July. This is the London, Ontario-born singer's 8th studio album.
Ain't no other love like this.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
I think it's special.
Good Friday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Welcome to the show. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Cool again today, but not raining this morning. Thanks for joining us. Well, as bail reform, one of the solutions to help solve the activity like we saw at the Walmart at Unicity. We're going to talk to a criminologist this half hour. He's going to weigh in after 4 young teens, the youngest 13 years old, were arrested and charged in an armed robbery at that Unicity Walmart earlier in the week. We're going to talk about the nature of this crime and also what can be done moving forward. And what is happening out there to have people as young as this involved in crimes like this. The mayor of the city of Winnipeg spoke to the Free Press and is calling for bail reform, referring to this case. So we're also going to dig into that in our interview. Stay tuned. That's this half hour. Heather Wells is in with updates on other headlines in Manitoba this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's premier has offered provincial help to Hollow Water. A mass stabbing in that Manitoba First Nation yesterday left 2 people dead, 8 people injured. An 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. Wabkanu says it's government's job to ensure people are safe both during critical incidents and in the aftermath. And a Saskatchewan First Nation, James Smith Cree Nation, says it stands in solidarity with Hollow Water. It was a mass stabbing there 3 years ago that left 11 people dead and 17 injured. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Into the forecast now. Abby, what do we know about today?
A cool and breezy day across the province with a mix of sun and clouds and a few showers here and there. Winnipeg 9 degrees right now, cloudy outside. It's going to stay cloudy this morning. We will see a slim chance of showers. By the noon period, skies will break into a mix of sun and clouds. Northwest winds breezy at some times. Temperatures will be warming to around 15 degrees. The south seeing 2 to 10 degrees and the north seeing around, the south actually 5 to 9 degrees, and up north we're seeing 2 to 10 degrees. 2 degrees in Thompson at this time. Winnipeg right now 9 degrees and mostly cloudy.
Corey, how's the drive?
Been a very quiet drive overall. Haven't heard of any major issues out there. But if you do see something going on out there, give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's get into this story. We have so much to understand about it. Winnipeg police say they were shocked to learn 4 teens were involved in such a violent and brazen armed robbery at a busy Unicity Walmart. Police say the teenagers who were part of this were between the ages of 13 and 17. They were caught taking backpacks into the store, stuffing them with items from the shelves, and when confronted by security staff, one of the teams allegedly pulled out a gun and fired, narrowly missing the guard's head. Police say it was a CO2 air gun, but luckily no one was hurt. All of the teens have been arrested. Now, Inspector Max Waddell is with the Winnipeg Police Service. He was at CBC yesterday for an interview about his concerns around this with the CBC's Faith Flundellen up to speed.
When we do apprehend individuals, they're not saying they are stealing for survival because they need a loaf of bread or they need a jug of milk. That's not what's being stolen here. What's being stolen is high-value items that can be easily turned around in the illicit community to either buy illicit drugs, buy firearms. It's a monetary value that is in the underground market right now, and I truly believe the majority is being used for illicit means for further gain.
That was Inspector Max Waddell of the WPS speaking with CBC's Faith Fundell yesterday. Waddell also was talking about changes and bail reform. The mayor's talking about it too. Mayor Scott Gillingham, in conversation with the Winnipeg Free Press, says, quote, this is right from the Free Press, our journalistic colleagues here. It's time for every part of the justice system to start prioritizing the safety of the public and not the criminals. We need a change to the laws. We need bail and sentencing reform that makes our community safer. So the mayor weighing in conversation with the Winnipeg Free Press. We want to talk about this, our way forward, with Michael Weinrath, criminology professor at the University of Winnipeg. He's here via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's first, before we talk about bail reform, let's talk about what we heard Inspector Max Waddell saying, that in his view, this crime is for capital gain and not for necessity or survival. What is your take on that and reaction to this?
Yes, well, I mean, I think we've seen a significant increase in shoplifting and retail robbery, if you will, over the last few years, right? Like, it's been a precipitous rise. And what you have happening, I think, in those sorts of situations is, well, there's two things, right? So there's groups of people who are talking about this sort of shoplifting, right? It's not a lot of individuals waking up one day and saying, well, I think I'll go, shoplift and see what I can get away with, right? So what we call sort of a subcultural effect. So there's a lot of individuals sort of reinforcing each other. And then at a secondary level, yeah, you have people who start organizing these individuals. And a lot of the people who are doing the shoplifting are people with mental health challenges, addiction issues, trying to get their money for the next fix. And so, yeah, there's people who are organizing these groups. They're selling this property. You can always find people who want to get some items for cheap, partly, because certainly we've seen the cost of living increase quite dramatically. So you have a market for these sorts of things. So I tend to agree with the police at this point. Then again, I mean, you have different levels, right? I mean, you do have people who are, committing these offenses just for small financial gain, but a lot of that is driven by individuals who can organize, a stolen property market.
I want to talk about how they organize around young people. I mean, we had two 13-year-olds here involved, the ages 13 to 17. Teens, the Winnipeg Police Service says the crimes were organized and teens may have been directed to commit the thefts, to complete the thefts. What does that say about youth crime? And when that happens, we heard... you might have heard the full interview, my colleague Faith Fundell asking, is this initiation into a larger gang, or is this just using young people because they're likely to stay from being behind bars, and so they can just use them to fuel activity? Like, what's your sense of young people being involved directly like that potentially here?
Yes, I mean, this is sort of a new old type of strategy by people certainly in the gangs. And, now we're seeing it in sort of the organized theft. We often sort of see some of these really extreme violent offenses by youth trying to earn entrance into the gang. This now is, again, as you're suggesting, a strategy of involving people, young people, because they know that, the young people are more or less likely to be released. Kind of ironic in a way, because the mayor is talking about bail reform. The older offenders, they know that they also have a good chance of not being released when they're arrested. So they're trying to exploit young people. And again, I started out, in this business years ago, working with young offenders in, a group home type setting. And, again, they're very vulnerable. They think this stuff is exciting. They're trying to impress people who seem to have money in their neighborhood, the cool, offenders, or sometimes it can be family members, and they're young people and they think that they're indestructible. But one of the things I did want to mention that seems to be forgotten in this story is that police responded, and you had a young person with a firearm. And the police have come under, tremendous criticism for overreacting and not de-escalating situations. and they managed that situation, without anyone getting seriously hurt. So, I think the police deserve some credit for that.
There's a couple things to build on here out of what you said, and we also have another clip of Inspector Waddell as well that I want to get to. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, people might have heard me when you're saying this is sort of a new old thing. The reason you maybe heard me say yup is because we years ago were talking about youth being involved and older offenders targeting youth to do different things for a crime and criminal activity. And this was like around Central Park. This was like 20 years ago. So this feels very similar with activity. But I want to build on what you said about bail reform and what the mayor has said about this, because in this case, we do know that the 17-year-old who was boy was charged with armed robbery using a firearm and 2 counts, we understand, of failing to comply with an offense order. So previously, and had a warrant for failure to comply with a sentencing order. The 15-year-old also had previous incidents, additional arrests. And so I think bail reform, while as you rightly point out that usually, that would be the older offenders we're talking about, in this case, perhaps is applicable. But what is your sense of whether or not bail reform could actually make a difference? Because people hold it up as something that, is needed. I'm just curious about your sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a mugs game now, right? I mean, you just wait and somebody commits a crime and people check to see if they're on parole or if they're on probation or if they were released on a bail order, and are saying, hey, see, this part of the system's not working. People are going to be involved in the system, and there will be some people who reoffend on various forms of supervision. So again, I think you have to look at, proportionately, how significant is that, and how much crime do you think you're really stopping? So I think the idea of bail reform, the Youth Criminal Justice Act, came in back in the around 2002, 2003, and youth crime was dropping significantly. And people were concerned that it was harder to lock up young people with the Youth Criminal Justice Act, but the crime rate went down in Manitoba as well as in other provinces, and so nobody was concerned about all these release provisions until recently, and we've had a spate of an increase in crime. And so, we have a lot of youth who end up involved with the criminal justice system, and we've been relatively successful over a number of years in getting those people back out of the system. So, locking up a lot more youth, and again, youth is a little bit different, right, than adults. Locking up a lot more youth more consistently is not necessarily the answer. And I mean, some of it, is again, the police and the Crown, they have to build these cases where they think it's going to be obvious that these individuals will reoffend.
I think that people just draw that straight line and say if someone is reoffending, if they were held, they wouldn't be out to reoffend. Why is it not that simple?
Well, I mean, I think that often people are released and, they end up staying out of trouble. But again, nobody remembers those things, right? I mean, and again, it's a cause-effect thing, right? People say, oh, this horrible crime happened. How could we have prevented it? Well, if they weren't on bail or whatever, or any other order, people can't really point at that. But if that's there, then people, the simplistic thing is, oh, well, if they hadn't been on, bail, then that never would have happened.
Let's
eliminate bail.
Let's move to other preventative measures that are potentially possible here. So 8:23 a.m., Michael Weinrath on with us, criminology professor at the University of Winnipeg. This is Inspector Waddell. He also had this to say. This goes beyond policing. Have a listen.
They're talking about, well, where are the parents? I don't know specifically with these youth, but I know how I was raised, and I was raised with parents who made sure that I was on the up and up and that I was being guided and taught properly about what the difference between right and wrong.
Right.
And sadly, I don't think all of today's youth have that in their lives. So we need to fill that gap.
What's your response to that, Inspector Waddell, talking about needing to fill a gap for kids who are vulnerable for various reasons?
Yes, I mean, I think he's correct. Again, this is sort of a new old. I mean, ever since people started talking about juvenile delinquency, people would be fingering the parents. And again, it's true. A lot of these kids come from very disadvantaged backgrounds. Sometimes they're kids in care. And so supports for those kids, and also supports for some of the families. We have people in impoverished circumstances, and they need some help. It would be nice to see, in cases of, some of our disadvantaged minorities, that more of our First Nations leaders were able to get involved and provide some support and advice on different forms of support for families.
And I haven't confirmed, by the way, I don't have it in front of me. We don't have a lot of detail about the full backgrounds, as you said, histories and identities of the youth involved. I do wonder if this is correct, that youth crime in Canada is on the decline. You said that earlier in our conversation, but in Winnipeg,
on decline.
Oh, pardon me. Okay, is it right that we though are different in Winnipeg? That in there other places it's still in decline and we're on the rise here? Like,
I'd have to go back check the.
Okay,
I'd have to go back check the stats, but really there was a national decline of significance until right around COVID, and it actually has picked up in most recent years.
Okay.
And Manitoba, we're always a bit of an outlier for serious violence. So, for example, some of the youth homicides in recent years are not seen in the rest of the country.
Where do we go from here then, in your view, in Manitoba, with this to? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think I would agree that, we need, two sorts of approaches. And I agree with the police that a lot of that is resources and just putting people on the street and people, back in the offices. And that's identifying people who are committing these thefts, working through your informant networks, gathering evidence, getting warrants, and identifying the ringleaders and prosecuting some of those individuals. Now, having said that, I was pleased recently there were some arrests of some people who are fairly prolific shoplifters, but there was also restorative justice referrals. And so again, let's try to identify individuals who maybe don't need to be incarcerated and would get some support. And otherwise, for the youth who are involved, some of them may have to be arrested and some of them may not be ready to be released without significant supports. And then on the prevention side, let's, identify some of the families that are experiencing, difficulty and try to provide supports for them.
Thank you very much for the interview today. Obviously, longer than our usual interview, but so many issues to cover here that are really prevalent and top of mind for people all over Winnipeg specifically as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Michael Weinrath is a criminology professor at the University of Winnipeg. If you want to read CBC's latest reporting on this, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
Jan Arden, legendary singer-songwriter, captivates her audience in a legendary venue.
Welcome to Massey Hall.
Jan Arden, with an evening of original hit songs and some of her favorite pop covers from her latest album, Mixtape. Jan Arden, CBC Live at Massey Hall. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Thank you.
8:28 a.m. on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. Lori called the commuter line, says there's a stalled car on northbound Lage Modière at Fermor. It's in the left lane, so backups are starting to build. That's what's going on there. There's a stalled car northbound Lage at Fermor left lane. 788-3093. If you see anything here before the show is out that we can pass along, that'll help. I can pass along. It's 9 degrees in Winnipeg. Hot spot in the province, 11. Cold spot Thompson at 2. And light rain has started up around Island Lake and even further north in Flin Flon as well. Today in Winnipeg, we are having a 30% chance of showers. Hopefully that's behind us, though that's just a slight chance. It's going to be windy, mix of sun and cloud, high 15. Well, Marjorie Dalhouse, host of Radio Noon, is in to talk about the call-in portion of the show between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. Hello.
Well, hello, Marcy. It's Friday, so let's talk a little bit about something lighter and fun for
Please.
Friday. Yes. You maybe have seen one, but there's been a lot of movie remakes and reboots. So like The War of the Roses, remember that movie that was back in 1989 with Michael Douglas? Well, there's a remake that's coming out, The Roses, with Benedict Cumberbatch. Also, Wednesdays, we know, is a reboot of The Addams Family. And recently, Happy Gilmore 2, Snow White, Superman. You could name so many. We've seen so many this year. So we're asking you today on Radio Noon.
Marjorie just punched her mic away. I love that. Bring it back.
If you've watched any of those reboots, remakes, what do you think? What are some classics that we should never touch?
Oh.
Yes. We want you to share your thoughts on everything.
The Godfather.
What have you watched recently?
Don't make it again.
Yeah, don't remake it. That's definitely a classic. Give us a call after 12:30. Join the conversation on Radio News. Have you watched any remakes or reboots lately?
Yeah, it wasn't well, okay. Happy Gilmore wasn't really a reboot, but it was a bit of a sequel. But I wasn't a huge fan. War of the Roses, I love the actors in the remake, so I'm open to it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Trailer looks good.
Yeah, I think it does too. Good Friday talk.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
So between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, all about movie remakes. And you can call into Radio Noon. Right now, it's time for your CBC Manitoba News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg, where it is still cold, but not as cold as yesterday. We do see a warm up through the weekend. Today, we're just at the beginning of it, so it's going to be 15 this afternoon with a mix of sun and clouds, and warmer tomorrow. Grief and shock in a Manitoba First Nation. A mass stabbing in Hollow Water yesterday left 8 people injured, and an 18-year-old woman died, as did the suspect, her 26-year-old brother. Police say Tyrone Simard fled in a stolen vehicle, crashed into a police cruiser responding to the stabbings, and Simard died at the scene. 7 of the stabbing victims remain in hospital. Hollow Water Chief Larry Barker is asking for prayers.
The families was very close to me, and my deepest condolences to the family right now. So I'll pray as hard as I could.
Now, a Saskatchewan First Nation says it stands in solidarity with Hollow Water. A mass stabbing there 3 years ago at James Smith Cree Nation and at a nearby community left 11 people dead and 17 injured. In a statement on social media, the First Nation says, "From our nation to theirs, we send strength, compassion, and the reminder they are not alone." It goes on to say, "We walk together in spirit." Students are having a bumpy ride trying to get to class this new school year when it comes to Winnipeg Transit and changes to the system. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison has talked to some students this morning. She's back in the newsroom right now. Megan?
Well, I was just out in Island Lakes, and they're having a number of issues there, and the Louisville School Division has actually sent out a notice to parents asking them for their experiences. Now, we were out on De La Seigneurie, where the number 557 bus is supposed to be taking kids to their schools at places like Collège Bellevaux and J.H. Bruns. Now, 2 of the children that we spoke to, one was going to the middle school. He said yesterday morning the bus went by and it was so full that it just kept on going by and he had to miss school. And then another person that we spoke to that goes to Collège Bellevaux, he says that he was waiting to see what would happen. They're supposed to be in class at 8:30. They didn't make it because when we were standing there, the bus just drove right on by, completely full, no room. And the look on these kids' faces. They were just devastated to see that the bus again. So they were going, we don't know what to do. I guess we're going to have to go home and see if our parents can drive us to school. Now, the school division is looking into this and saying it wants to work with Winnipeg Transit and see if it can't come up with a solution. But in the meantime, it's asking parents in the Louis-Riel School Division, if they're having challenges as far as the bus is concerned, to reach out to them and let them know what's going on, or call 311. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Well, the North End Women's Centre and Urban Circle Training Centre along the same stretch of Selkirk Avenue in Winnipeg have been the target of copper theft for months. Both not-for-profit organizations have had their HVAC units stripped of the copper and left unusable. Some are now calling for greater enforcement of the Scrap Metal Act. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says his government is looking at ways to improve it.
In conjunction with industry, in conjunction with community, and in this case, in conjunction with business owners, we're more than happy to look at that because we have had success with the catalytic converter legislation, and I think that, if there's opportunities like that, we're going to take them.
Wiebe says his government is also developing a security rebate program for businesses to help with security and repair costs. Canada's unemployment rate is on the rise. Statistics Canada says joblessness moved up to 7.1% last month. It had been 6.9% in July. 66,000 jobs were lost across the country in August, most being part-time positions. Jobs were also lost in Manitoba. Unemployment in this province rose to 5.7% last month. Manitoba's Addictions and Homelessness Minister says the province won't rush in finding a new location for a supervised consumption site. Premier Wab Kinew says the province will find an alternative spot to 200 Disraeli Freeway in Point Douglas following concerns from the community. Minister Bernadette Smith says she listened to the feedback.
We want to make sure that we're getting it right, so we've taken what we've heard from community and we're instituting into the plan.
The province says the new location will be further from schools and daycares. 13 southeast Manitoba communities will be able to double their population after a new $235 million wastewater treatment plant is built near Niverville. More than 100 kilometers of pipes will connect towns to that plant. Niverville Mayor Myron Dick says his fast-growing town is just one of the southeast communities approaching their limit.
Let's face it, infrastructure is limiting some places in this country. Businesses are looking, where do you have infrastructure? Where do you have power? Where do you have water? Where do you have wastewater? Do you have proper road access to get goods to market? If you don't have that, you are disqualified.
6 municipalities will own it as a co-op, including Richot, Hanover, Taché, La Broquerie, de Salaberry, and Niverville. Tenders for that plant are due out today. You can find more news updated throughout your Friday. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So big thanks to Corey Funk, Abby Adeyemi, Kalkadam Mulugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chini Akuma, May McKillop, Marshall Hodgins, Dylan Longhurst, and Jenna Odasso. Current Affairs reporter Jim Agapito, community reporter Shanley Vidal, host Nadia Kidwai and Faith Fundal, YouTube producers Brad Lillies and Azika Abdelatif. In our news department, Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, Joni Nicolo, Aaron Broman, and Santiago Arias Orozco, as well as Robin Summerfield, Nellie Gonzalez, and Leif Larson. Those are all the producers, associate producers, and folks that were working on all of our shows this week. It's Friday. I always like to thank everybody. Anything to say before we go in traffic that's urgent, Corey?
Northbound Kenniston at Fermor in the left lane, stalled car.
Okay, and the weather, Abby?
Cool and breezy, highs 10 to 16 degrees.
Boom, this is us dropping the mic on Info. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, whether you're banjo bowling, teddy picnicking, lantern festivals, or going to the Neighbor by Neighbor Festival. Lots going on. Take care. Stay safe. We'll talk to you Monday.